Hey everyone, per your requests, I'm starting Soul Land 5, The Rebirth of Tang San. If you're able to, please support me on PayPal to help me stay active. Chapters 601 through 620 of the previous episode. Tang San stages his death as Azura using the sea god's power, deceiving the tenebrous demon emperor, then regenerates his body via the space-time beacon over several days. Returning to Golden Valley, he reinforces its protective arrays, refines a new weapon, the god-hunting crossbow, for his Crimson Fox allies, and successfully merges his Behemoth and Golden Mammoth bloodlines into a transcendent golden armor transformation. Back in Kali City, Tang San reveals his true identity to Mei Gongzi, explaining their past life bond. Seeking a safe place for her tribulation, Tang San guides Mei Gongzi and her father, the Peacock Great Demon King, to the endless blue sea. Thank you. Now let's get back to the story of Soul Land 5, The Rebirth of Tang San. In terms of sheer quality, the Holy Blaze Saber couldn't compare to the Celestial Plume and couldn't block its power. However, with the power of the Azura sword behind it, not even 10 Celestial Plumes could enter without its permission. Gradually, Mei Gongzi's perception of the red light became stronger. It was a long sword, not red in color but emitting a crimson glow. The slender blade exuded not a burning aura, nor a dark one, but a surprising coldness. Yet Mei Gongzi clearly felt that this wasn't the coldness of cruelty, but the unyielding coldness of justice and the righteousness of judgment. The Azura sword was also the sword of judgment, the sword of the divine realm enforcer. Now that she was breaking through to godhood, through the Holy Blaze Saber's connection with the Azura sword, Mei Gongzi felt its sword intent fluctuations for the first time. Although the sword intent was perfectly cold and unmoving, when Mei Gongzi's divine consciousness enveloped it, she could clearly feel a touch of familiarity amidst the coldness. The sword was cold to anything and everything around it, but to her, it only transmitted acknowledgement. Stimulated by her own divine consciousness and influenced by Mei Gongzi's ascension, the red light subtly intensified, becoming brighter. The celestial plume still attempted to break in, but whenever it touched the edge of the red light, it would be instantly repelled as if shocked. The silver peacock behind Mei Gongzi had now become completely clear. Each eye on its tail feathers emitted brilliant silver light, creating a splendid spectacle under the now darkened sky. What astonished the Peacock Great Demon King was that the silver peacock's eyes were changing from silver to crimson. But this crimson was not the bloody color of evil. Instead, it carried a supreme, majestic glow. Even with his cultivation level, when he looked at the crimson light directly, he could feel his divine consciousness being agitated and stimulated, experiencing sharp pain. The Peacock Great Demon King turned to look at Tang San. Tang San nodded at him, as if he knew what was causing his astonishment, and said in a deep voice, "It's fine. I told you that she is connected to an exceptionally powerful divine artifact. Its aura is merging with hers through the tribulation, which is beneficial for her. It will also allow her to better utilize the artifact's power, even while she doesn't have it on her." The Peacock Great Demon King frowned. A life-bound divine item? Establishing a connection with a divine item during a tribulation. In other words, creating a life-bound divine item was indeed important and beneficial. But this crimson light was most certainly not the clan's foundational artifact, the celestial plume. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind as he quickly recalled the red sword light that Mei Gongzi had used to cut down Meng Didi. So that was it. But what exactly was that item? The Peacock Great Demon King vaguely remembered the powerful red sword light rising to the heavens, majestic and righteous. It had split the demonic artifact in two, and even the vengeful spirits had been instantly purified by its aura. Without a doubt, it was an incredibly powerful divine artifact. But as the next clan leader of the Peacock Demon Clan, her life-bound artifact should be the celestial plume. Just as he was about to say something, the sky suddenly changed. Tang San and the Peacock Great Demon King couldn't help but look up. The previously dark clouds changed color as golden lightning began to weave through them. This massive cloud now covered an area of tens of miles, far larger than the area covered during Zhang Haoshuan's tribulation. In the vast cloud, golden lightning bolts crisscrossed, and deep rumbling sounds began to emanate from the tribulation cloud. The lightning tribulation was finally about to arrive. What? What kind of lightning tribulation is this? Staring at the golden lightning in the sky, the Peacock Great Demon King felt his hair stand on end. Even with his peak Great Demon King cultivation, a sense of fear began to arise in his heart. Tang San's expression also turned serious. Although he had long since anticipated that Mei Gongzi's tribulation wouldn't be easy, he hadn't expected it to be this fierce. The Peacock Great Demon King didn't recognize this kind of lightning tribulation, but Tang San certainly did. This is the 6 Directions 8 Desolations Golden Fiend Tribulation 1. Lightning tribulations had many variations, but they could in principle be categorized into 9 levels. The power difference between levels was nowhere near as simple as doubling or tripling. If the power of the first level was taken as the basic unit of measurement, then the second level tribulation's power was not 2 but 4. Every level had a power equal to the square of that level. The third level was 9, the fourth was 16, the fifth was 25, and the sixth was 36. When Zhang Haoxuan went through his tribulation, due to his relatively high bloodline power, the tribulation was around the second level. But the tribulation Mei Gongzi was facing now, the 6 Directions 8 Desolations Golden Fiend Tribulation, was of the 8th level. This meant its power was 64 times that of a first-level tribulation. Moreover, this was just speaking in terms of sheer power. The fact that this tribulation had a particular name signified that there was also a qualitative difference, and that made it a world-destroying tribulation. If one could successfully cross a 6th-level tribulation, it meant they had the potential to become a first-class god, an emperor. As for an 8th-level tribulation, Tang San suspected that this might be the first time such a powerful tribulation had appeared in this plane. How could it be so powerful? But then Tang San understood why. It was him. As an outsider, Tang San had always been rejected by the plane, though he had used various means to conceal his own presence. Mei Gongzi, having spent a long time with him, naturally carried some of his aura. More importantly, he had linked her with the Azura sword. A transcendent divine artifact was something the plane couldn't handle at this point, so even though the Azura sword's presence was only a trace of its sword intent, from a certain perspective, the plane now also considered Mei Gongzi an anomaly. That was the reason for such a terrifying tribulation. At this moment, the area covered by the tribulation clouds continued to expand, and even from Kali City, one could likely see this vast, terrifying tribulation cloud illuminated by golden lightning. The silver lining was that there was no need to worry about anyone coming to cause trouble at this time. No one would dare approach such a lightning tribulation. Even an emperor might not be able to retreat unscathed in the face of such a tribulation. What do we do? Can we ask the sea god for help? The Peacock Great Demon King's anxious voice rang out. Although he didn't fully understand what the 6 Directions 8 Desolations Golden Fiend Tribulation was, he could clearly tell it had devastating power. Tang San took a deep breath and said, "Don't panic. Although the 6 Directions 8 Desolations Golden Fiend Tribulation is terrifying, it's still a lightning tribulation, so there's always a glimmer of hope. We'll deal with it as it comes. Little Mei, the tribulation is about to descend. It's stronger than we imagine, but no matter how powerful it is, you must hold firm to your heart. Don't let your heart waver." Mei Gongzi nodded slightly. The silver peacock behind her slowly raised its head, and the crimson gleam in its eyes became more majestic. There was not a hint of fear. A massive rumbling sound suddenly erupted, causing the entire sea surface to ripple with vast waves. Tang San's gaze sharpened and he said in a deep voice, "It's here." In the next instant, a beam of golden light streaked across the sky, illuminating the sea below and reaching above Mei Gongzi's head almost instantaneously. Layer upon layer of silver light patterns twisted, and countless spatial fluctuations suddenly appeared, as if numerous spatial gates had opened above Mei Gongzi's head. When the golden light entered, countless golden dots spread around the island, turning the surrounding sea golden. Large swathes of seawater silently vanished, causing the sea level around the island to drop slightly. Mei Gongzi shivered violently. The silver peacock behind her was entangled with the golden lightning, struggling in pain. Tang San's voice rang out. "The lightning of the 6 Directions 8 Desolations Golden Fiend Tribulation has immense penetrative power. Use the White Tiger transformation to protect yourself internally, and use the Peacock transformation Star Shift to deflect it." Although it was just one bolt of golden lightning, it was enough to make the Peacock Great Demon King shudder in fear. He thought that if he had faced such a tribulation back then, he might have been severely injured just by that single strike. Another loud rumble echoed in the sky. Immediately, an even larger golden lightning bolt descended from the heavens. In front of Mei Gongzi, a phantom of a white tiger appeared. Its blue eyes looked skyward, and its wide-open maw released a silent roar. The golden light fell, and the layered space reappeared, once again teleporting the terrifying golden light outside. But the silver peacock behind Mei Gongzi trembled, and the golden lightning became even more intense, causing some silver flakes to fly off from its body. And the tribulation had only just begun. The white tiger's shadow leaped into Mei Gongzi's body, and the lightning affecting the silver peacock immediately halved. Mei Gongzi was now experiencing sensations she had never known or expected. When the first bolt of golden lightning struck, she felt as if her soul had been pierced, and the power of the lightning coursed through her body. The previously turbulent flow of her bloodline power suddenly became smooth, breaking through all barriers and causing her entire body to boil with energy. When the second lightning bolt struck, she didn't feel pain. Instead, she felt her entire body becoming transparent, with countless tiny bolts of golden lightning coursing through her. But although her bloodline power was doing its best to absorb this energy, it was too overpowering. The space energy in front of it was continuously obliterated. But after just 2 bolts of lightning, a large amount of spiritual power in her sea of consciousness was stimulated to surge, transforming into divine consciousness and merging inward amidst the rippling golden light. The sky brightened again, and this time 3 golden lightning bolts descended from the heavens, flashing instantly. The silver peacock suddenly spread its wings and soared, with a platinum crown on its forehead emitting a brilliant light. Countless spatial forces condensed into sparkling starlight. When the golden lightning fell, it was blocked by the starlight. Golden light flickered rapidly among the stars. As a result, the starlight dimmed, and the scattered golden lightning fell once more on the silver peacock. The silver peacock's light quickly dimmed as the lightning coursed through it, forcing it to descend from the sky and crash onto the ground. For the first time, a look of pain crossed Mei Gongzi's delicate face, but in the next moment, a fierce and murderous aura burst forth from her. She continuously absorbed the power of the golden lightning. White Tiger Transformation. The White Tiger Demon Emperor was known for his comprehensive abilities, excelling in both offense and defense. His bloodline's defensive abilities far surpassed those of the Peacock Demon bloodline. At this moment, it replaced the Peacock Transformation in bearing the remaining power of Tribulation Lightning. Meanwhile, the Peacock Transformation used its Star Shift ability to deflect most of the attacks. Mei Gongzi's body underwent another transformation. She felt that her blood, meridians, and bones had gained a faint golden layer under the tempering of the golden lightning. Her spiritual power was even further along with its transformation, elevated to the level of divine consciousness. As her bloodline power evolved and her spiritual power turned into divine consciousness, the silver peacock regained its vitality, and its feathers now had a faint golden sheen. To undergo tribulation was to become a god. To become a god was to evolve to a higher level of existence, in body and spirit. During this process, one had to endure the baptism of lightning continuously. If they withstood it, they successfully crossed the tribulation. If they couldn't, they would be annihilated. It depended on whether their cultivation could keep up with the increasing power of the lightning tribulation. After 3 strikes of lightning, Mei Gongzi seemed to be handling it relatively well. However, the Peacock Great Demon King didn't know how many strikes there would be. He didn't even know when he should use the items he had prepared. Tang San stood not far from Mei Gongzi, and some of the aura from the 6 Directions 8 Desolations Golden Fiend Tribulation also fell on him, affecting him. He silently absorbed some of the tribulation's power, sharing some of the burden with Mei Gongzi. Of course, he had to be particularly careful not to absorb too much, so as not to affect Mei Gongzi's tribulation crossing. But in the process he made a strange discovery. His golden armor transformation seemed rather interested in the lightning power of the tribulation. As he absorbed the scattered tribulation energy in the air, the golden armor transformation imprint became more active. Tang San didn't dare to let it absorb too much, however. His greatest risk was being affected by the lightning tribulation, triggering his own tribulation. His lightning tribulation would be even more terrifying, and if it caught him now, unprepared as he was, then he, Mei Gongzi, and the Peacock Great Demon King would surely be obliterated. After 3 strikes, the tribulation clouds in the sky seemed to calm down slightly. However, Tang San's expression became even more solemn. The 6 Directions 8 Desolations Golden Fiend Tribulation was, as its name implied, a 6-8 tribulation, not 6 plus 8 but 6 times 8. 6 rounds of 8 lightning strikes. And moreover, their power would increase. This was just the 3rd strike. Even though there had been 3 bolts at once, it counted as only 1 strike. In other words, there were still 45 strikes to go. The show had just begun. What a terrifying power. If an ordinary demon was undergoing tribulation, they would have already completed it, and even gotten some extra benefits. But as long as Mei Gongzi could still endure it, Tang San would never act rashly. Although the 6 Directions 8 Desolations Golden Fiend Tribulation was terrifying and life-threatening, the stronger the lightning tribulation, the greater the benefits, and the more complete the transformation. Mei Gongzi's potential would be maximized in this situation. Although this was an 8th level heavenly tribulation, not something just anyone could endure, there was still a slim chance of survival. It was no more than 1 in 10, but it was still better than the 9th level tribulation, which spelled certain death. For Mei Gongzi's future, Tang San would carefully protect her, but he also wanted her to use this heavenly tribulation to maximize her potential. If she succeeded in crossing the tribulation, she would not be an ordinary god. Although she might not become a great demon king at once, she might well reach the peak of the demon king level in one go. Therefore, although crossing the tribulation was difficult, Tang San was not all that worried. It was certainly a double-edged sword, but it depended on how it was handled. The rumbling sounded again. It was still 3 golden streaks descending from the sky. But this time when the 3 golden lightning bolts appeared, each was faster than the previous one, so much so that the trailing lightning caught up with the leading one. The 3 bolts merged into one in midair and descended from the sky as a single strike, arriving in an instant. The silver peacock soared into the sky and star shift was activated once more. But this time, the starlight dots shattered under the power of the lightning. Around Meigongzi, a large area of vegetation on the small island turned to dust almost instantly. The silver peacock was enveloped in lightning and directly struck down to the ground, nearly disintegrating. Meigongzi's delicate body shivered, blood seeping from her mouth and nose. For the first time, golden lightning struck her directly. Her clothes were made of special material, which could somewhat filter the power of the lightning. Despite this, she still showed signs of pain. There was no time to breathe as another 3-fold lightning bolt descended from the sky. Divine consciousness! Tang San shouted. Immediately, a red light shot up from above Meigongzi's head, transforming into the shape of a saber in the air, slashing toward the descending golden lightning. The lightning scattered, and as if baptized by the lightning, the red blade light turned a reddish-golden color, glittering brilliantly. Meigongzi let out a muffled groan as the blade light returned. It was the Holy Blaze Saber, her new divine weapon. The Holy Blaze Saber was one of the rare divine items that could integrate into the divine consciousness, becoming a part of it. As the tribulation went on, it leveraged the power of the lightning to fully merge into Meigongzi's sea of consciousness. The Holy Blaze Saber also communicated with the Azura sword, assisting it. Now that Meigongzi used it to counter the lightning tribulation, it slashed the lightning with the blade of divine consciousness. Imbued with a trace of the Azura sword intent, this strike proved highly effective. This scene made the Peacock Great Demon King's eyes light up. What a fine artifact! Meigongzi had now endured 5 of the 48 strikes, and she was rapidly evolving. Fine patterns began appearing on her peacock crown, and her aura was completely transformed. 4 golden lightning bolts appeared simultaneously. Thanks to the time gained by the Holy Blaze Saber, the silver peacock had recovered again and soared into the sky. The starlight from star shifting was noticeably more brilliant than before. Although it was struck down again, it seemed to handle it more easily. This was the effect of Meigongzi's evolving cultivation. As her cultivation improved, it naturally became easier for her to resist the lightning tribulation. Although the lightning struck her once more, Meigongzi's injuries did not worsen. After defending a few times and even being hit once, she had some experience and was able to adjust her tactics based on it. This was a display of her foundation and strength. The tribulation clouds in the sky, swirling with golden light, once again fell into temporary calm. But it was clear that the upcoming lightning would only become more powerful. Meigongzi opened her eyes, and a faint trace of gold flashing in her pupils. She turned to look at Tang San, now somewhat understanding why he had previously told her to absorb some of the lightning. Only now did she sense the secrets of the lightning. Though the lightning was terrifying and powerful, when it coursed through her body, the benefits were obvious. It triggered a complete transformation, allowing her spiritual power and physique to fully integrate with one another and ascend together. Stimulated by the lightning, they would continuously transform, provided they could withstand the relentless attacks. Tang San nodded to her. "Give it your all. I've got your back." Meigongzi pressed her hands lightly on the ground beside her, then leapt up, forming seals with her hands in front of her chest. Silver light flickered around her, and a vast amount of spatial power gathered around her, drawn by her evolving divine consciousness. The upcoming lightning would only grow stronger, and she didn't know how many more there would be. But at this moment, her eyes showed a proud expression. She wanted to rely on her own strength to face this tribulation, not always depending on Tang San. The sky resounded with deafening rumblings again. The vast tribulation clouds seemed to expand further, bringing more violent golden lightning fluctuations. Terrifying bolts of lightning converged in the air, 6 golden streaks flashing almost simultaneously. In the next instant, a brilliant lightning bolt shot down. Meigongzi let out a cold snort and raised her hands united in a seal. At the same time, she stepped onto the beach, dancing gracefully against the backdrop of the lightning. The spatial energy around her body moved with a special rhythm, driven by her dance. Rings of silver light transformed into ripples, blooming around her. Tang San could feel that a spatial energy field had formed around Mei Gongzi, containing unpredictable spatial fluctuations. The powerful six-fold lightning struck in and instantly disappeared. What could be seen was layer upon layer of silver light expanding outward, carrying strands of golden lightning. In an instant, the spatial power had divided the lightning into hundreds of parts, gradually dispersing it. What a celestial dance! Tang San marveled inwardly, his figure flickering as he retreated to a safer distance. At this moment, the small island was Mei Gongzi's stage. Each movement seemed to embody the principles of heaven and earth, and each movement was incredibly graceful. Every step, every shift of her hands seemed to draw all the spatial energy between heaven and earth. Instead of weakening after dissolving the lightning, the rings of silver light grew even more radiant, drawing more spatial energy from the air toward her. Undoubtedly, having evolved into divine consciousness, her spiritual power now afforded her a new understanding of spatial power. The Peacock Great Demon King looked somewhat dazed as he gazed from afar. When the sixth lightning strike fell, he knew that his preparations were probably useless. This was the celestial dance, the true celestial dance. At this moment, he finally understood why his ancestor had become an emperor while he had not. Spatial energy without the guidance of the celestial dance had no soul. At this moment, Mei Gongzi was the child of space, the master of space, and the guardian of space. Even at the peak of the 11th order, he couldn't do what Mei Gongzi was doing now. At this moment, she was like an heavenly maiden dancing gracefully in the heart of her own cosmos. Thousands of spatial fluctuations surrounded her, enveloping the space between heaven and earth. Compared to the golden lightning in the sky, the ever-expanding rings of silver ripples on the ground were tiny, incredibly tiny. Yet, it was these tiny silver ripples that deflected the brilliance of the golden lightning in the sky. Tang San gradually understood why Mei Gongzi faced the 6 directions 8 desolations golden fiend tribulation. Only such an incredibly sharp lightning tribulation had the potential to break through spatial barriers. Likewise, by absorbing the golden fiend tribulation, Mei Gongzi's spatial power would become more unpredictable, while also gaining a sharp edge. The 7th lightning followed almost immediately, and it was 7-fold. It was even stronger than the one before. Mei Gongzi, however, was unafraid. Her steps remained graceful, and the silver halos rippled. Countless tiny golden lightning streaks flowed within the silver light, expanding over a larger area and making the silver light even more dazzling. Mei Gongzi was always surrounded by golden light, but through countless spatial shifts, she diminished its destructive power. Celestial dance, a true divine technique. Tang San sincerely admired her and felt slightly relieved. Such a tribulation was immensely beneficial for Mei Gongzi. She was now using not only celestial dance but also star shift at the same time. These two divine techniques were the most solid foundation of the Peacock Demon clan, but how many of her clansmen could even dream of using them? There was no better time to truly comprehend them than while under the threat of such a tribulation. If she continued along this path, then once she successfully crossed the tribulation, she would be able to integrate the two divine techniques, 8-fold, and then 9-fold. The lightning continued to fall, and Mei Gongzi resisted each strike. The celestial dance grew faster and faster, the silver halos it generated expanding from an initial diameter of 10 meters to 100 meters. Her figure became difficult to discern, but the spatial field grew increasingly powerful. The entire space within was unpredictable, bringing various marvelous changes only spatial power could create. At this moment, Mei Gongzi's enlightenment regarding space had well and truly crossed the threshold into the god level. Even Tang San, who was intently watching from the side, benefited from this, and his own understanding of the peacock transformation gradually deepened. This was the true power of the peacock demon bloodline, a first-tier bloodline whose heirs had hopes to ascend to the rank of emperor. Even among first-tier clan members, extremely few had the potential to become an emperor, and this naturally applied to the peacock demon clan members as well. But they were all part of the same clan, and the others were pure-blooded peacock demons, so why didn't they possess the abilities Mei Gongzi was displaying? It wasn't just a matter of bloodline. Personal comprehension was necessary in order to make best use of that bloodline. The eyes of the peacock could see the secrets of heavens, and mere diligent cultivation was far from sufficient, even if accompanied by a pure bloodline. One needed profound insight to truly master such high-level concepts. Thanks to the direct teachings of the Peacock Great Demon King, the approval of the ancestral inheritance, and Tang San's guidance, Mei Gongzi had finally reached that level of comprehension. Much unlike her peers, she was beginning to delve into the true essence of space. At this moment, under the baptism of the 6 directions 8 desolations golden fiend tribulation, her comprehension deepened, and her evolution accelerated thanks to the stimulation of the tribulation lightning. 8 strikes make a round, and there are 6 rounds in total. Be careful, the second round will begin, Tang San's voice called out, reminding Mei Gongzi that she could not get complacent. When the 9th lightning bolt struck, Mei Gongzi felt something different. Besides the original sharpness, this lightning was also accompanied by a peculiar energy. Not only was it sharp, but it felt murderous, and it instantly obliterated any spatial energy it encountered. The lightning power could be guided outward, but the murderous energy had to be resisted. As strands of this energy struck Mei Gongzi, she clearly felt her body being invaded. They continuously attacked, trying to wreak havoc within. In such circumstances, all she could do was try to guide these strands of murderous energy out of her body. As it turned out, Star Shift could be used both externally and internally, and it once more played a crucial role at this moment. So, if one could observe Mei Gongzi closely now, they would see swathes of golden mist rippling around her. This mist was brought about by the Golden Fiend Lightning's power. Tang San naturally noticed this as well, but he also realized that his golden armor transformation seemed rather fond of this murderous energy, the Golden Fiend part in the name of the tribulation. It seemed to exert a natural force of attraction toward that energy, and as Mei Gongzi expelled it, the golden armor imprint absorbed it. This was energy brought by a top-level lightning tribulation, so it naturally had to be something special. And indeed, while absorbing the Golden Fiend energy, Tang San felt that this transcendent bloodline imprint began to evolve again. It was already at the peak of the 9th order, and it couldn't possibly break through, but it seemed that it was still capable of evolving. Moreover, its intense bloodline fluctuations were accelerating the evolution of his other bloodline imprints. Undoubtedly, this would move forward the timing of Tang San's own tribulation, but an opportunity was an opportunity, and he certainly knew that some opportunities he just had to take. The power of the Golden Fiend tribulation was something beyond cultivation, beyond any other kind of power. Tang San had no qualms about absorbing this energy. It was an absolute treasure. Moreover, it seemed to be perfectly compatible with his golden armor transformation, making it an ideal nourishment. It was still the 9-fold lightning, but that peculiar golden aura was even deeper. The strikes of the second round did not increase much in sheer power, like the first round. Each of the following bolts was a little stronger, but not by much. However, the murderous energy grew far more intense. The incredibly sharp aura had already cleared all vegetation from the small island. Even the surrounding seawater was tinted with a golden glow, and let alone normal water, even water elemental energy was being destroyed, resulting in large voids appearing around the island. A faint smile of satisfaction appeared on Tang San's face. Although the strong murderous energy grew stronger with each lightning strike, Mei Gongzi showed more and more proficiency with Star Shift. The murderous energy continuously bathed her, but she always managed to expel it. What delighted Tang San even more was that while this murderous energy wasn't good nourishment for the peacock transformation, it was perfectly suitable for the white tiger transformation. A white tiger's shadow could be seen constantly leaping around Mei Gongzi's body, absorbing the golden fiend energy. Its originally white fur was starting to turn golden, indicating its own transformation. As the white tiger transformation evolved, it fed back into Mei Gongzi's physique, enhancing her physical strength. The absorption of the golden fiend energy naturally increased her tolerance to it. Mei Gongzi attracting such a powerful tribulation was, among other things, due to her possessing 2 bloodlines. And as she fought against the tribulation, it was only natural for both bloodlines to work together. At this moment, the benefits of the 2 bloodlines cooperating became fully evident, allowing Mei Gongzi to gradually understand how to integrate the peacock transformation with the white tiger transformation. The embryo of a top-tier powerhouse was gradually taking shape under the baptism of this tribulation. The peacock Great Demon King's expression looked rather peculiar at this moment, as he watched his daughter handling such a powerful tribulation with ease. He even showed a hint of jealousy. How he wished it was him facing this tribulation. If he had possessed such abilities back then, how would he have feared the Crystal Phoenix? Neither he nor the Crystal Phoenix Demon Emperor had the foundation to become emperors originally. At one point, a tremendous opportunity appeared for avian demons, but seizing that opportunity required giving up a lot. The Peacock Great Demon King was willing to take it, but the opportunity ultimately did not fall into his hands. It was the Crystal Phoenix Demon Emperor who had taken it, giving up his relationship with Su Qin. Had he given up the opportunity instead, it would have belonged to the Peacock Great Demon King, and he might have become an emperor. So, over the years, the Peacock Great Demon King's hatred for the Crystal Phoenix Demon Emperor was no less than the latter's hatred for him. The Crystal Phoenix Demon Emperor hated him for stealing his wife, while he hated the Crystal Phoenix Demon Emperor for taking away his opportunity. But at this moment, the mindset of the Peacock Great Demon King began to change. He felt that even without such an opportunity, if one's understanding of their own bloodline was profound enough and their foundation strong enough, they could still become an emperor. His failure was due to his lack of insight and insufficient effort. He had been wrong from the start. Instead of seeking external power, he should have thoroughly developed his own bloodline power. Although he had never seen an emperor crossing their divine tribulation, he firmly believed that the tribulation Mei Gongzi was facing now, and her process of crossing it, was not inferior to any emperor's. Given enough time, she would undoubtedly become an emperor. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but press his lips together and clench his fists. Go, little Mei, you can definitely succeed. The lightning grew stronger with each strike, and the murderous energy continuously intensified, tinting the ground with a layer of gold. After this, the island would likely be unable to grow any vegetation for a long time. The 16th lightning bolt crashed down, and the silver halos rippling around Mei Gongzi were almost instantly dyed gold. In that moment, her dance steps finally faltered slightly, and even the white tiger phantom beside her froze in midair, turning completely golden. This was the strongest strike of the second round, and the terrifying golden fiend energy peaked at that moment. But with that, the second round was over. There were still 4 more rounds to come. Mei Gongzi looked up at the sky, slightly panting from the intense pain she was experiencing. Her body and divine consciousness alike were evolving, and they were both absorbing the energy of the tribulation, but the process was not instantaneous. She needed time to digest this energy, and she had to use Star Shift to dissipate the part she couldn't handle. After 2 rounds of lightning strikes, her body and spirit were overflowing with energy, and she could not take in any more of it. But suddenly, the sky seemed to suddenly freeze, and everything around fell into a brief stillness. Then she heard a voice, a familiar voice. It was Tang San's voice. She instinctively looked toward Tang San. 9. At that moment, Mei Gongzi saw a 7-colored orb glowing above Tang San's head, emitting a strange radiance. A ripple of energy surged upward, causing everything around to seem momentarily stagnant. As a master of space, she felt that it wasn't the tribulation that had halted, but that she was enveloped in a special space, temporarily isolated from the tribulation. 8. Tang San's voice sounded again, and Mei Gongzi immediately understood what he was doing. The celestial dance resumed, and she was fully committed to rapidly dissipating the remaining lightning energy and golden fiend energy within her, quickly restoring herself to the best condition, while also allowing her physique and divine consciousness to evolve. What Tang San was doing was buying her time. He was not neutralizing the tribulation for her, but giving her a chance to catch her breath. This allowed her to process the energy she had absorbed and regain her bearings, so that she could face the upcoming lightning. 7. Mei Gongzi was still absorbing energy at a fairly high rate. The energy accumulating within her was due to her not having enough time to digest it. Now that she had the leisure to do that, she could absorb and process at the same time without risking overload. 6. The white tiger shadow finally regained its vitality. The golden sheen of its fur quickly receded, but its black stripes turned a dark gold. The murderous energy condensed towards its eyes, and by this point, the white tiger looked no longer illusory but extremely solid. It remained white, but a faint golden halo flickered around it, and its eyes were completely golden. 5. The lightning in Mei Gongzi's body was gone, and the halos expanding around her returned to their silver color. Her beautiful eyes grew brighter, and her long hair flowed behind her. All traces of fatigue and pain vanished, and she looked more radiant than ever. 4. Mei Gongzi took a deep breath, and her dance quickened. She suppressed the celestial plume, which was practically begging her to let it emerge. Her hands moved in the air, rapidly gathering spatial energy. 3. The silver halos on the ground began to boil, countless spatial fluctuations appearing. Within the silver halos, some dark spatial cracks could be seen, indicating the extreme concentration of spatial energy. 2. Mei Gongzi's delicate body floated up slightly. The golden sheen of the white tiger completely faded, while a layer of white light wrapped Mei Gongzi's body, accompanied by an intense murderous aura. This was not a result of the tribulation lightning, but her own murderous aura. Time flowed once more, and the roar of lightning in the sky erupted almost immediately. There were no scattered bolts merging into one and no other special features either. A thick golden lightning bolt, like a spear aimed at the earth itself, descended from the sky. As it passed, space shattered around it, causing light to distort. The third round, pure lightning energy. Nothing but pure lightning, Without the murderous energy and explosions of the previous rounds, just a bombardment of pure lightning and the intense pressure it brought. Mei Gongzi thrust her hands forward, and the spatial energy around her body instantly transformed into a tornado-like silver storm, sweeping upward. The silver light exploded, scattering into countless droplets of light, but the gold continued to fall, slamming Mei Gongzi into the ground. This was the 17th lightning bolt, the first of the third round. Mei Gongzi's expression changed slightly. She knew this couldn't be resisted head-on. The second lightning bolt followed immediately, even more powerful than the first. If it hadn't been for the 10 seconds of respite Tang San provided her, Mei Gongzi felt she might not have been able to hold on now. As she went through the motions of the celestial dance, Mei Gongzi's delicate body shifted here and there. Meanwhile, a giant white tiger soared into the sky, biting into the lightning. In the next moment, the white tiger burned with astonishing murderous energy, shooting into the sky and dissipating along with the lightning. Mei Gongzi groaned in pain. The white tiger's figure reformed beside her, but it was noticeably more ethereal. This resulted from using the murderous energy she had condensed to withstand a lightning strike. With this buffer, the spatial fluctuations around Mei Gongzi reappeared, and dots of starlight shone brilliantly. Behind her, peacock feathers spread open. Each eye of the feathers burst with dazzling silver light, which transformed into tiny stars that ascended into the sky. The 19th lightning bolt descended from the sky, carrying even greater destructive power. But this time the silver light twisted, and with star shift, the golden lightning was instantly redirected, striking the distant void. The best method to deal with pure power is to dodge, and if you can't dodge, then deflect using minimal force to redirect the strike. Mei Gongzi's pretty face was flushed red, but her eyes were filled with determination. Her character was resilient. The more difficulty she faced, the higher she rose to meet them. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Tang San's face. He wiped the blood flowing from his nose. He had already put away the space-time beacon covered in rainbow skyfire liquid. This was all the power he could use after refining it these past days, and in his current state he could only use it once. But even this one use had provided Mei Gongzi with 10 precious seconds of respite. As Mei Gongzi's protector, his preparations were naturally extremely thorough, far more so than those of Mei Gongzi's own father. It wasn't that the Peacock Great Demon King didn't want to prepare for his daughter. He simply didn't know how terrifying the tribulation she would face would be. Had it been an ordinary Peacock Demon clan member instead, the tribulation would have been done long ago and wouldn't have reached this intensity. Relatively speaking, among these 6 rounds of tribulations, the third round was actually the easiest for Mei Gongzi to withstand. The Peacock Demon clan's divine technique, Star Shift, was best at neutralizing such pure power attacks, using minimal force to send even the strongest attacks away from the user. Seeing Mei Gongzi successfully guide the third lightning strike, Tang San understood that she shouldn't have any problems with the third round. Tang San closed his eyes and took a deep breath, pulling himself back together while extending his divine consciousness into the ocean. The creatures around the small island had long fled due to the arrival of the lightning tribulation. However, thanks to the seawater acting as a conduit, Tang San could still sense numerous spiritual waves belonging to the sea creatures in the distance. His divine consciousness drew in large amounts of this residual spiritual power, which helped nurture it. The true difficulty of the 6 Directions 8 Desolations Golden Fiend Tribulation lay in the last 3 rounds. These 3 rounds of lightning tribulation could turn Mei Gongzi into ashes at any moment. Relying solely on her own strength to resist them was simply impossible. And it was clear to Tang San that the tribulation descended in such a terrifying manner because the plane intended to destroy her. The planar ruler was not necessarily a concrete entity, but even if it was invisible, that did not mean it didn't exist. Its role was to ensure the safety of the plane, and anything that disrupted the balance of the plane would face its backlash. It was impossible to directly fight against the entire power of the plane. But at the same time, the plane couldn't just randomly kill a living being. It could only influence them through special events like now, using the opportunity of the lightning tribulation to completely destroy the unpredictable factor. Naturally, Tang San's tribulation would be even tougher than Mei Gongzi's. Point 1. The original here translates as, "For ounces move 1,000 pounds." It comes from a writing of Wang Zhongya, a legendary grandmaster of the martial art Taijikwan, aka Tai Chi, which emphasizes softness and flow rather than head-on clashes. The lightning tribulation Mei Gongzi was facing now was based on the planar ruler's assessment of what would be an insurmountable force for her. However, this was also the plane's only chance to directly destroy her. If Mei Gongzi succeeded in crossing the tribulation, she would truly be free to roam the vast seas and skies. Unless and until she became a peak-level emperor, She would no longer face suppression from the plane. As Mei Gongxi's protector, Tang San had naturally prepared multiple strategies. These days, he had been pondering the type of tribulation Mei Gongxi would face. Although he couldn't precisely predict the 6 Directions 8 Desolations Golden Fiend tribulation, he had prepared for the worst, which was an 8th level lightning tribulation. The Spacetime Beacon's time bubble was his first card, and now he was preparing to use his second. The lightning bolts grew stronger one by one, but with the 10-second break earlier, Mei Gongxi's body had undergone a more thorough transformation, and her cultivation had also increased. Her use of star shift became more adept, and she managed to redirect the lightning bolts around her, safely enduring strike after strike. Despite this, she still bled from her mouth and nose due to the impact, suffering some internal injuries. After the 24th lightning bolt, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. She was getting a brief moment to catch her breath. She immediately swallowed a healing elixir given to her by her father. But at this moment, she was surprised to find that the tribulation clouds in the sky had undergone some changes. The originally golden lightning seemed to darken, and its aura caused Mei Gongxi to feel short of breath. The terrifying pressure caused her expression to change. Not only was it not over yet, but the tribulation was still growing stronger, much stronger. Although her resolve remained firm at this moment, she couldn't help but furrow her brow. The Peacock Great Demon King had described many types of tribulation to her, but she was certain that the tribulation she faced now was far stronger than any her father had ever seen or heard about. Then Tang San's voice rang out again. The 4th round is the Destruction Tribulation. Apart from the power of the lightning increasing, it also carries a destructive aura. Prepare to absorb the power I send you. Each time she heard his voice, Mei Gongxi's restless heart would become calm again. She turned her head to look at Tang San, seeing the blood not completely wiped from his nose. At that moment, Tang San slowly raised his right hand, the golden trident mark on his forehead glowing brightly, radiating intense light. A golden light gradually appeared in his palm, forming a golden trident, though it was very ethereal. At that moment, even the Peacock Great Demon King noticed that in the surrounding sea, specks of azure light were rising. It was not water elemental energy, but rather a different kind of power, an incredibly pure power, rapidly converging toward the small island. Tang San pointed the ethereal trident in his hand at Mei Gongxi. Instantly behind him, a gigantic silhouette that seemed to span the heavens and earth flashed and disappeared. Mei Gongxi saw that the gigantic silhouette, seemingly hundreds of meters tall, had long blue hair. In the next moment, an immense energy surged into her body, enveloping her in a blue radiance. The tribulation clouds in the sky, now dark gold, started to churn. The onset of the 4th round was momentarily delayed. The Peacock Great Demon King's pupils contracted. What is this? Then he heard a strange voice, as if from ancient times, each word seemingly containing the profound truths of heaven and earth, resonating throughout the vast surrounding sea. The sea god's blessing. The sea shook and the water seemed to boil. More blue light surged forth, rapidly converging toward Mei Gongxi and merging into her body, forming an azure barrier around her. This strange power nourished her, instantly healing her injuries and absorbing the lightning tribulation energy seeping into her body. Although this mystical power did not merge with her own at this moment, she could feel that she could utilize this power, transforming it into her own. The sea god's blessing. Was he really the sea god in his previous life? Was he really my husband? A strange feeling lingered in Mei Gongxi's mind. In that moment, she felt the warmth of someone dear protecting her. The sensation was so wonderful that she momentarily forgot she was in the middle of a tribulation. But the tribulation was quick to remind her. Thunder roared above her head. When the lightning descended from the sky, it was now a dark golden color. The lightning, filled with a destructive aura and terrifying explosive power, fell upon her almost instantly. In the face of absolute power, all techniques seemed futile. The starlight shattered. Star Shift could only redirect a small portion of the power, and the silver halos driven by celestial dance also broke apart. The pure lightning power fell. This was a strike filled with destructive power, as if intent of destroying heaven and earth. Yet the azure barrier held up a little piece of the sky, and the earth below was protected. Mei Gongxi danced gracefully within the azure halo, continuously dissolving the destructive power. Despite the immense pressure, she barely managed to withstand it. One destructive lightning bolt after another followed, each one as heavy as a mountain, seemingly capable of annihilating everything. But the endless blue sea rippled with azure halos. Under the sea god's blessing, before the destructive lightning could strike Mei Gongxi, it was continuously filtered through these layers of azure energy that broke down the immense energy of the tribulation. It was as if the power of the entire sea was fighting against the destructive will of the tribulation. Amidst the calamity, Meigongzi deeply felt the terrifying power of the destructive lightning, but she also sensed the vastness of the sea. In the seawater there was also space. If her spatial power could be as vast as the sea, then how could any attack, no matter how powerful, affect her? Unconsciously, she seemed to have gained a further understanding of space. Under the influence of the destructive power, her body, which still belonged to the human realm, continued to transform. Limitations were removed and impurities were expelled. Only the sublimated power remained. What was destruction if not an opportunity to rebuild? Moreover, the sea god's blessing brought the power of creation, the power of life. The sea, which nurtured countless beings, conveyed to her the feeling of rebirth within destruction. The transformation accelerated and finally, Meigongzi's sublimation ended. At this moment, she had completely transitioned from human to divine. She was now truly at the 10th order, with her sea of consciousness fully evolved into a sea of divine consciousness, and her mortal body fully transformed into a divine body. Her aura underwent a dramatic change, and the peacock crown on her forehead disappeared, replaced by a strange light mark. The light mark was ethereal, with a faint glow that resembled both an eye and a feather, but it was soon engulfed by a red light that took its place. Meigongzi's peacock blue hair turned back to jet black, with a strange streak of wine red. Only one strand of hair was this color, and it gave off an indescribable sense of majesty. Her eyes also reverted to black, deep and lively. She had successfully broken through. She was a god. Moreover, her power at this point was completely different from the ordinary Peacock Demon Clan's god-level members. She could feel that at the moment she completed her breakthrough, the celestial plume wanted to merge with her again, but it was forcibly blocked by the sword intent of the Azura sword, preventing it from succeeding. Meanwhile, her Peacock Demon bloodline and White Tiger bloodline completely merged with her human bloodline, with the latter taking the lead. The two demon bloodlines had become subservient, which was why her hair and eye color had reverted to black. The 30-second destructive lightning roared violently, and the energy of the sea god's blessing finally shattered completely at this moment. The destructive power once again bathed Meigongzi from head to toe, causing her body to radiate dark golden lightning. In the next instant, her entire body seemed to brighten, her already stunning beauty becoming even more exquisite. The biggest change was in her eyes, which now held a strange brilliance. As the final destructive lightning bolt fell, some strange fragments of light and shadow seemed to appear in her newly transformed divine consciousness. Many of the light and shadow images were ethereal, but one was particularly clear. It was the image of a boy and a girl on a hill, surrounded by lush plants. The girl sat down and the boy stood behind her, combing her long hair. The girl's pretty face was full of smiles, and the area around them was filled with blooming flowers. An indescribable emotion surged into Meigongzi's heart. She didn't look at the ongoing lightning tribulation, instead turned around to look at the young man who had just invoked the sea god's blessing for her, and was now bleeding from his 7 orifices. It was him. That boy was him. And the girl, was that me? For some reason, 2 lines of tears uncontrollably streamed from her eyes. Under the vast tribulation clouds their gazes met. Tang San's mind was also somewhat dazed. The transformed Meigongzi looked more and more like her past self. "Xiaowu, have you returned?" Tears flowed, diluting the blood. At this moment, the turmoil within Tang San's heart was indescribable. In the sky, the dark golden lightning changed again, this time turning into a regal purple, and casting the entire tribulation cloud into a golden purple hue. In the distant Kali city, countless people were looking towards this direction from high places within the city. When the tribulation clouds first appeared, many strong individuals had already noticed something unusual, but didn't know what was happening. Was that a lightning tribulation? But why were the tribulation clouds so vast and terrifying? Even from a distance, the sea appeared to be a zone of destruction. Was some creature in the endless blue sea undergoing a tribulation? But even great demon kings didn't dare to investigate what was happening above the sea at this time. The golden purple tribulation clouds had reached the 5th round. This was the king's tribulation, a baptism of majestic power between heaven and earth. It was not a force of destruction but an oppressive force. It was a questioning by the plane, a test by the plane. What gives you the right to stand in front of my majesty? 8 purple gold lightning bolts crisscrossed in the sky. Yes, the 8 rounds were simultaneous. When they fell together, crushing everything. Meigongzi's vision blurred. Her tears tinted golden purple by the lightning. The clear images in her mind gradually faded, while the unclear ones continued to flow in her divine consciousness. Was she influenced by the divine consciousness, recalling some memories of her past life? Perhaps. Was that what he described as the past? He hadn't told her much, only that she was his wife in their previous life. If Mei Gongzi had initially harbored doubts, only vaguely guessing that he wasn't lying, now she was almost certain that everything he said was true. Her own divine consciousness couldn't deceive her. The Peacock Great Demon King had once told her that when spiritual power transformed into divine consciousness, those of her kin could often see peculiar things. Some saw the future, others saw the past, and some even saw past lives. In other words, what she saw was really her past life. He truly loved her in their past life. In the sky, the 8 purple gold lightning bolts collided and converged, gradually forming a clawing and roaring purple gold lightning dragon. Its aura completely locked onto Mei Gongzi. Mei Gongzi raised her head, the tears in her eyes fading, replaced by a hint of irritation. "Stop bothering me," she shouted coldly. Her eyes turned red in an instant, and the red light mark that had just formed on her forehead burst forth. A red beam shot up, a sky-piercing pillar of sword intent. The holy blaze saber shattered completely in that moment, becoming fuel and merging into the red beam. At the same time, above the tribulation clouds beyond the 9 heavens, a red beam flashed instantly. As the sky-piercing red beam appeared, even Tang San's face showed astonishment. The red beam, giving off a sense of righteous judgment, almost instantly pierced through the body of the purple gold lightning dragon. The lightning dragon froze in midair, and the red beam that had pierced the 9 heavens suddenly descended, merging with the red beam from Mei Gongzi's forehead. It then fell onto her forehead, making her entire body glow with brilliant red light. In that instant, the endless sharpness emanating from Mei Gongzi even tore a huge hole in the tribulation clouds. The purple gold king's tribulation shattered completely, swept up by the red beam and directly absorbed into Mei Gongzi's body. Tang San saw the illusion of a sword. In the past, the wielder of this sword had the power to enforce the entire divine realm's laws, a power that all gods feared. It was a symbol of justice, an unparalleled transcendent divine weapon. When Mei Gongzi became a god, she saw flashbacks of her past life, and for a moment, she saw the world through those eyes, as if she had regained a trace of her past self. At that moment, the sword intent within her sea of consciousness sensed the aura of its former master, and used the holy blaze saber as a sacrifice to forcibly summon a true sword light belonging to the Azura sword. Even though the Azura sword itself was in an unknown distant place, in that instant, it had lent its power to its master. In front of the Azura sword, what was the golden fiend tribulation worth? The sky-piercing sword intent swirled around. The celestial plume, which had been trying to regain control in Mei Gongzi's consciousness, instantly fell completely silent and unmoving, like the feather it was. Mei Gongzi felt the aura of the Azura sword, and for a moment, she could see yet another clear scene. A man with long blue hair holding a long red sword, cutting down a golden dragon with one strike. At that moment, she felt clearly and unmistakably the true power and terror of the Azura sword. Thus, she had no qualms rejecting the advances of the celestial plume, following Tang San's advice. She had come to trust his words unconditionally. In the sky, the purple gold tribulation clouds surged violently. The purple hue gradually faded, but the golden lightning bolts within the dark clouds began to change. The blinding gold grew stronger, so much so that above the endless blue sea, the massive tribulation clouds were fully dyed gold. Seeing this scene, the Peacock Great Demon King couldn't help but shiver. Even with his level of cultivation, he felt a sense of oppression in front of this incredible power of heaven and earth. What a terrifying power it was! Tang San's expression also turned grave. Without a moment of hesitation, he flashed to Mei Gongzi's side. The 6 Directions 8 Desolations Golden Fiend Tribulation had 6 rounds. The first 5 had been overcome, and what remained was the final round of Tribulation Lightning. And this time there was only one strike. Not only did it include the full power of the 8 strikes that would have appeared normally, but it also had the special attributes of the previous rounds, all combined together. This was the 6 Directions Lightning. It was the punishment of heaven and earth, as well as the wrath of heaven and earth. Sword intent surged around Mei Gongzi, but at that moment, she suddenly felt a tightness around her waist as a strong arm wrapped around her. The familiar and warm embrace made her heart quiver slightly. Focus on the sword intent just now and release the sword light of the Azura sword. It's the only way, Tang San's voice whispered in her ear. The Peacock Great Demon King saw Tang San's left arm holding Mei Gongzi in a tight embrace and his right hand holding hers, pointing diagonally to the ground. A brilliant red sword light suddenly burst forth, and in an instant, that red light enveloped both Mei Gongzi and Tang San. The sword intent that was the source of the light almost instantly sensed Tang San's divine consciousness. It did not resist but instead brought Mei Gongzi a feeling of excitement and joy. Yes, The sword light showed emotions as if it were alive. The golden tribulation clouds in the sky grew brighter and brighter, and the immense pressure caused the entire small island to crumble and break apart. Yet, Tang San held Mei Gongzi steady in place, and within a 10-meter radius of them, the ground was entirely unaffected. A huge golden pillar of light descended from the sky, and the power of heaven and earth erupted in an instant. The strongest strike of the 6 directions 8 desolations golden fiend tribulation was upon them. At that moment Tang San's divine consciousness merged with Mei Gongzi's, and they combined their strength to guide the red sword light, drawing a graceful arc. The mysterious circles of heaven. A red moon seemed to appear on the ground, colliding with the golden pillar of light descending from the sky. The gold engulfed the 2 figures below almost instantly, and between heaven and earth, it seemed as if only the golden pillar connected the sky and the earth. In the moment before the lightning struck, the Peacock Great Demon King had already teleported far away, because he could clearly sense that the power was capable of directly obliterating. His face had turned ashen, for he had no idea whether Mei Gongzi and Tang San could withstand such an attack. At the same time, he was kicking himself internally for not realizing it earlier. What Sea God's emissary? What Tang San? Well, maybe he is also whatever Tang San, and maybe he really is an emissary of whatever Sea God, but he is without a question Azura. That explains a lot. Yes, Azura had not died. No matter how his appearance or hair color changed, the way he executed that divine technique together with Mei Gongzi could not be faked. And to the Peacock Great Demon King, the sight of him holding her hand and jointly tracing that arc could not be any more familiar. This was what had brought them victory in the Ancestral Court's elite competition. At this moment, they were using the power of that unknown, mighty divine artifact combined with their divine technique. Could that help them withstand the final terrifying thunderstorm? The Peacock Great Demon King did not know. He could not imagine the kind of devastation this attack would bring. It was an attack that could easily rival the full power strike of an emperor. At this moment, the entire Kali City was in turmoil. When the lightning tribulation descended, even Kali City was bathed in golden light, and the endless blue sea shimmered with gold. The sheer pressure of the tribulation clouds actually forced the sea level down by more than a meter, across hundreds upon hundreds of kilometers. The golden light in the sky gradually receded and the clouds dissipated. Yet even after they had entirely vanished, the sun in the sky seemed somewhat pale and dim, giving off none of the heat they had felt before the tribulation. What a terrifying force that was! The Peacock Great Demon King hovered dazedly in midair, feeling somewhat disoriented. Was that truly just a lightning tribulation? He repeatedly asked himself this question. Could the power of a lightning tribulation be this overwhelming? Yet reality lay bare before him, and whether it defied imagination or not, it was still reality. Thinking back, his so-called preparations were simply laughable. He had never imagined that a tribulation could be so powerful, and naturally, the measures he had in store were woefully inadequate. Silver light flickered as he teleported back to the island, or rather, where the island had once been. It was no more. The island had completely vanished, leaving only the endless turbulent sea. And Mei Gongzi and Tang San's figures had also vanished. Have they been annihilated? If that was the case, then all his years of planning had been for nothing, and the Peacock Demon Clan was doomed. He never imagined the problem would arise during Mei Gongzi's lightning tribulation. What seemed like an unlikely issue had turned into such a huge flaw. Failure and death during a lightning tribulation was not something out of the ordinary, let alone for such a terrifying tribulation like the 6 directions 8 desolations golden fiend tribulation. But for the Peacock Great Demon King, it was simply impossible to accept. Just then, a head emerged from the water. The Peacock Great Demon King was startled and focused his gaze. It was a head with slightly disheveled black hair. Then he saw a hand combing through it and revealing a beautiful face. It was Mei Gongzi. At this moment, her face was pale and her eyes were dull. She struggled to pull someone else up from the water. Or rather something that looked a lot less like a person and more like a lump of charcoal. The Peacock Great Demon King had never seen someone this charred in his entire life, and he couldn't even tell if the body still had some life in it, or was just a dead body. "Little Mei!" the Peacock Great Demon King shouted and instantly flashed to her, diving into the water to support the exhausted Mei Gongzi. Mei Gongzi's lips trembled as she weakly said, "Save him, save!" Before she could finish the sentence, her head slumped, and she lost consciousness. The Peacock Great Demon King held her with one hand and grasped the lump of charcoal with the other. Even though Mei Gongzi was unconscious, she still clung tightly to it. The Peacock Great Demon King could feel Mei Gongzi's condition. She was fine, just exhausted. Both her bloodline fluctuation and divine consciousness were intact. On the other hand, the condition of the other person was truly uncertain. As long as my daughter is safe, activating his full power, he instantly brought everyone away. Without the pressure of the tribulation, the sea soon returned to normal. An hour later, several enormous figures silently emerged from the sea in the area where the tribulation had occurred. They all exuded immense power, yet their eyes now reflected nothing but fear. Mei Gongzi was deeply unconscious and she dreamed. In her dream, she seemed to see many vivid scenes. She saw many strange beings and colorful auras surrounded them. It seemed something terrifying had happened, causing her to awaken and sit up suddenly. She gasped for breath and then, to her astonishment, realized she was now in her room. She straightened her body, her gaze blank as she struggled to recover from the previous terror. What did I dream about? She pondered, but she couldn't remember anything from the dream. No, that's not right. I'm in my room. But wasn't I undergoing the lightning tribulation? Yes, I was trying to achieve godhood. With a mere thought, she instantly appeared on the floor, on the other side of the room. She could clearly feel the difference within her. A silver aura immediately manifested around her as soon as she moved, encircling her. As she recovered her bearings, her memories returned, the memories of that terrifying tribulation. She recalled the final moments. She remembered how he had come to her side, standing with her to face the overwhelming might of the heavens. They had used the Azura Sword's intent to power the mysterious circles of heaven, forcefully neutralizing the final strike of the heavenly tribulation. Their bodies were both baptized by the lightning tribulation. As the main target, she should have borne the brunt of the lightning, but in reality, it was the Azura Sword that had taken on the most. The sword light fused completely with her body, fully protecting her at that moment. But Tang San, who was behind her, wasn't as fortunate. The Azura Sword wasn't present in its true form. Its light and sword intent were limited. Although it blocked a significant portion of the lightning's power, some of it still reached Tang San. He was struck, or rather, he let himself be struck in order to dissipate some more of the lightning's violent force. The two were struck down into the sea, Tang San's life hanging by a thread. Mei Gongzi used the last of her strength to pull his charred body from the water before losing consciousness. No, he can't be dead. At that moment, a familiar voice sounded. Little Mei, you're awake? That's great. You really scared Mom. Mei Gongzi found herself enveloped in a warm embrace. She looked up to see her mother's tear-streaked face, now overflowing with tears as she held her tightly. Of course, she had to inform her mother about her tribulation. The Peacock Great Demon King assured Su Qin that Mei Gongzi's tribulation would be easy, and that he would watch over it. Thus, Su Qin waited at Mei Gongzi's residence for their return. Mei Gongzi had won the Ancestral Court Elite competition, so in Su Qin's eyes, her daughter's tribulation should have gone without any problems. When she saw the tribulation clouds over the distant sea from Kali City, she felt as if an ice thorn stabbed her heart. But by then, that sea area had become a forbidden zone. Even great demon kings dared not approach, so all Su Qin could do was wait anxiously by the shore. When the final lightning appeared, dyeing the entire sea golden, Su Qin had nearly despaired. Could such heavenly power be resisted by mortals? She was a god herself, and she had naturally undergone tribulation. But what was the lightning tribulation she'd faced compared to this one? Nothing but children's play. Why was her daughter's lightning tribulation so terrifying? Was it because she had first-tier bloodlines? At that moment her mind went blank, and she felt deep regret. Her daughter was her everything. If something happened to her, she wouldn't be able to live on. When the lightning tribulation ceased, Su Qin stared blankly at the sea. To her surprise, it didn't take long for the Peacock Great Demon King to appear before her with her daughter and a piece of charcoal. Seeing the ecstatic expression on the Peacock Great Demon King's face, she felt immense relief. And indeed, after checking, she found that her daughter was unharmed and had successfully undergone tribulation. That day, she stayed by her daughter's side, not leaving for a moment, fearing something might happen to her. Mei Gongzi's delicate body shivered as she hugged her mother tightly. In her mind, she recalled the enormous golden beam descending from the sky, seemingly about to destroy the entire world. At that moment, even her steadfast heart had wavered. Could she really survive the heavenly tribulation? Could she truly withstand such might? But the hand holding her wrist remained firm, and the aura behind her was steady. It was he who guided her once more through the mysterious circles of heaven, and it was he who helped her bear the impact of that terrifying power. How is he? Mei Gongzi's voice trembled as she asked, truly fearing her mother would bring bad news. You mean Tang San? He's still unconscious. He hasn't woken up yet, Su Qin replied gently. He's not dead, right? Mei Gongzi tightly grasped her mother's hand, her beautiful eyes filled with hope. He's not. We all thought he wouldn't survive, but his vitality is strong. It seems the injuries are mostly superficial. Although he has some internal injuries, they're nowhere near as serious as it looks on the outside. It's good that he's not dead. It's good that he's not dead. Mom, where is he? I want to see him. Please. He's right next door. Your father gave him the best spiritual medicine, but his appearance is a bit. Well, if you want to see him, you need to be mentally prepared, Su Qin replied. Mei Gongzi's heart tightened, but she still nodded. No matter what, as long as he was alive, she had to confirm it. At this moment, she was even 100 times more nervous than during the tribulation. Su Qin observed her daughter with her divine sense and couldn't help but be secretly shocked. At this moment, Mei Gongzi gave her a strange ethereal feeling, as if she herself was a gateway to infinite space. When Su Qin's power touched her, what she sensed was an endless void. She had heard from the Peacock Great Demon King about the difficulty of this tribulation. He had been extremely excited, telling Su Qin that Mei Gongzi had undergone an unprecedentedly powerful heavenly tribulation. Such a powerful tribulation meant that she would become extremely strong after it, far beyond any ordinary demon king. He was now absolutely confident that Mei Gongzi could inherit the position of clan leader. No one in the entire Peacock Demon clan could stand against her. Mei Gongzi couldn't care less about that, however. Led by Su Qin, she quickly left the room and went to the room next door. As soon as she opened the door, she smelled a burnt odor, as if someone had forgotten the steak on the stove. She quickly walked to the bedside, and when she saw Tang San's appearance, tears almost instantly flowed out. He looked vaguely humanoid, but his entire body was charred black. His skin was completely carbonized, making his facial features barely recognizable. He had become all because of her, all for her. He had given her most of his strength during the final powerful lightning strike. His divine consciousness had infused into her sea of consciousness, and pushed the Azura sword to protect her. Meanwhile, all the residual force of the lightning had fallen upon him. Tears rolled down drop by drop as Mei Gongzi shivered. She squatted down to get closer to him, raising her hand to gently touch his wrist. She could vaguely feel his blood flowing. He was alive, but his current state was truly miserable. Your father gave him medicine but didn't dare move him. With injuries like these, any external force might cause secondary damage. But we can feel his bloodline origin is still there, and his vitality is very strong. Now it depends on his own recovery abilities. Little Mei, don't worry too much. He will be fine. Look at him, how can he be fine? Mei Gongzi was now crying uncontrollably. Whether he was Azura or Tang San at this moment, those two figures had completely merged in her heart. Since she met him, he had always silently supported her, giving selflessly without expecting anything in return. He gave her all his kindness, while he bore all the suffering. Whether there was a past life connection between them or not, a man willing to sacrifice so much for her and being so exceptional left her with no reason to hesitate. Tang San, can you hear my voice? I succeeded in my tribulation, did you know? Mei Gongzi softly called to him, sitting by the bed. Of course, the charred Tang San couldn't respond, but Mei Gongzi just continued to speak softly. Please get better, okay? It really scares me to see you. No matter what happened before. All I know is that in this life I can't be without you. Whether you're Azura or Tang San, as long as you recover, I want you by my side and I'll always be by yours. Su Qin stood nearby, listening to her daughter's heartfelt words, seemingly reminded of something. She sighed softly and slowly withdrew, leaving the room for the two of them. Mei Gongzi gently caressed Tang San's carbonized hand, her eyes dreamy. The first time I saw you, you came to buy milk tea. You kept looking at me and I saw you seemed to be crying. If we really had a past life connection, you must have recognized me then, right? You were so weak back then. After that, I always saw you in the milk tea shop or at the academy. I've always felt close to you and I could never understand why. I was always on guard against everyone but not against you, and I could not understand why that was the case. Thinking back, if what you said about our past life connection is true, then everything makes sense. It was the bond from our past lives, wasn't it? Then you put on a mask and you became Azura. You were right. If Tang San had shown the abilities of Azura back then, I would have thought he was a monster. So you hid your identity. Tears fell drop by drop onto Tang San's charred arm as Mei Gongzi cried like a pear blossom bathed in the rain. Tang San was lying there quietly, like a good lump of charcoal, but suddenly, his lips twitched slightly, causing the charred skin at the corner of his mouth to make a light cracking sound. Although Mei Gongzi was crying, her now gut-level senses were incredibly sharp. She heard the sound and instinctively raised her head. She saw Tang San's mouth cracking open. Yes, it was not just opening but cracking open. This scene shocked her so much that her tears stopped flowing, instead hanging by her eyelashes like little glittering crystals. Accompanied by a series of light cracking sounds, the crack began to extend backward, gradually reaching his earlobe. Then another crack appeared, extending upward toward his nose. The cracking sounds became increasingly loud. Mei Gongzi didn't even dare to breathe at this moment, fearing that he might just shatter and die right in front of her. The weak but steady sound of a heartbeat echoed, and suddenly, with a crack, a piece of charred skin fell from Tang San's face, revealing tender pinkish-red skin underneath. Then another piece of charred skin cracked open, seemingly about to slide off his cheek. Mei Gongzi cautiously reached out her hand, pinching the piece of charred skin and carefully lifting it off, only to reveal another patch of tender skin. She didn't dare to apply force, but she seemed to understand. She gently pressed along the cracks in the charred skin, and sure enough, the charred layer all over Tang San's body broke apart like a hard shell, falling off in pieces. Mei Gongzi didn't care that her hands looked as if she was cleaning chimneys for a living. She peeled off piece after piece of charred skin, and soon Tang San's face was fully exposed. The tender skin looked incredibly delicate, with faint traces of blood, but it was completely undamaged. The only thing missing was the hair on his head. His hair and eyebrows were all gone, leaving his bald head looking like a peeled egg. Listening to his steady heartbeat and looking at the tender skin under the charred shell, Mei Gongzi felt a sense of relief. Seeing his bald head, she couldn't help but chuckle, and the tears in her eyes fell onto his body. Tang San's lips moved and a faint voice came out. "You said you were willing, better keep your word." Although his voice was very soft, Mei Gongzi heard it clearly. Her pretty face flushed with embarrassment. She raised her hand to hit him but couldn't bring herself to do it. You bad guy, you woke up a long time ago, didn't you? You did it on purpose to scare me." Mei Gongzi pouted, but Tang San's heartbeat weakened in the next instant. Mei Hongxi was startled. She knew how powerful the lightning tribulation had been. She hurriedly said, "I'll keep my word, I promise. Don't scare me." The heartbeat returned to normal. Mei Gongzi was momentarily stunned and then felt a mix of emotions. You little, ugh. But regardless of her changing emotions, she still carefully peeled off the charred pieces from his body, revealing more skin. The tender skin on his face, once exposed to the air, gradually returned to normal, becoming fair and smooth. Even Mei Gongzi, who had excellent skin, couldn't help but feel a bit envious. Of course, right now, she had the absolute advantage in terms of hair. Tang San looked much better as the charred shell pieces fell off, but more and more of his skin was being exposed. At first, Mei Gongzi didn't think much due to the excitement of Tang San's safety. However, as she peeled off the charred shell past his chest, revealing his firm chest muscles, and then started to move toward his abdomen, her face began to blush. She had never seen a man's body up close before. As more of his skin was revealed, she couldn't help but turn even redder. Once she reached his waist, she hesitated. What should she do? After a brief thought, she started from the bottom, peeling the charred shell from his feet, then worked her way up past his calves, knees, and then his thighs. Her breathing became rapid. She closed her eyes and peeled the charred shell with her small hands. But when she reached the upper thighs, she stopped, hurriedly pulling a nearby blanket over him. You can do the rest yourself." Feeling his steady heartbeat and even breathing, she calmed her own breath, which had by now turned quite erratic. She fetched a broom to sweep up the charred shell pieces and threw them away. Then she returned to his side, held his wrist again, and felt his blood flow and energy circulation. At this moment, Mei Gongzi's sea of consciousness had transformed into a sea of divine consciousness, making her senses much sharper. She discovered that although Tang San's energy fluctuations were weak, they were very stable, and his vitality was abundant. More peculiarly, there seemed to be a special energy constantly being generated in his body. His initially red and tender skin had mostly returned to normal, and if she looked closely, she could see a faint golden glow. His body is incredible. To think he managed to survive that formidable lightning. He was truly amazing. He always managed to turn danger into safety. He seemed to arrange everything perfectly as long as she was with him. He always found a way through, even in the face of great danger. Although he seemed weak at the moment, holding his wrist gave Mei Gongzi a special sense of security, a feeling she cherished. Perhaps the greatest thing a man could give a woman was a sense of safety. Now that Tang San was confirmed to be fine, Mei Gongzi relaxed a bit and turned her focus inward, finally paying some attention to the changes in her own body. After enduring the powerful 6 directions 8 desolations golden fiend tribulation, She had completely transformed. The baptism of lightning had caused such a massive change in her body that even she found it hard to believe. Her sea of consciousness had completely transformed into a sea of divine consciousness, now feeling vast and boundless. It was as if a starry sky had appeared in her mind, filled with countless twinkling stars. Among the many stars, a long sword emitting a red glow stood proudly. The boundless starry sky had no center, but with the sword floating there, the sea of divine consciousness seemed to have a focal point. With a slight tug of her mind, Mei Gongzi could clearly feel her perception expanding far and wide, instantly covering vast distances. All the spatial energy within her perception naturally flowed toward her upon sensing her. It was as if she no longer needed to cultivate actively, because the energy of heaven and earth would fill her of its own will. Her physical strength had also increased significantly. The two bloodlines, previously distinct, now seemed to have achieved a certain level of fusion. Every movement she made felt like a natural law, as if whatever she did was the very will of the world. It felt very peculiar and incredibly smooth. Everything was falling into place naturally. She could also feel her body continuing to transform. The lightning tribulation's power still lingered within her, constantly improving her body. She noticed that she had grown taller and her long hair had turned completely black, remaining so even when she activated her bloodline power. She now knew that following the tribulation, her human bloodline had absolute dominance, and her peacock demon and white tiger bloodlines were nothing more than attributes, abilities of her human self. Her physique and bloodline power had become stronger, much stronger, but Mei Gongzi was sure that the most significant change was in her sea of consciousness. The Azura sword seed of sword intent within her had absorbed the holy blaze saber, and it was now far more powerful. She could now vaguely sense that the actual Azura sword was rapidly approaching her from a distant place. Although she didn't know how long it would take for the sword to truly arrive, she was certain that the stronger her divine consciousness became, the sooner she would see it. The celestial plume lay quietly in her sea of consciousness, nestled in a small corner, looking somewhat pitiful. In the face of the powerful aura of the Azura sword, it now seemed like a little child being bullied by a professional beast arena fighter. Mei Gongzi had an hunch that her human bloodline being dominant instead of her peacock transformation or white tiger transformation was largely due to her choice to merge with the sword intent of the Azura sword, making it her life-bound divine weapon. Undoubtedly, the Azura sword was the most powerful divine item she had ever seen or heard of. And speaking of power, even she didn't know how strong she had become after the tribulation. Thinking of strength naturally led her to remember something else that was rather important. She quietly stood up and left Tang San's room, letting him rest. Su Qin was waiting outside and gently comforted her when she saw her come out. "Don't worry too much. His vital signs are all good. We just need to wait for him to recover slowly." Mei Gongzi nodded, much more relieved now. "He'll be fine. By the way, Mom, how long was I unconscious? When is the ceremony?" Su Qin replied, "There's no need to rush. After you returned, your father announced that the clan leader's inheritance ceremony would be postponed for 5 days. Postponing things would have been to your disadvantage normally, but he said that after you survived such a tribulation, anything else was inconsequential. He was extremely excited that day. I don't think I've ever seen him that way. You know, watching those terrifying tribulation clouds from the shore. It really scared me." Mei Gongzi glanced back at Tang San's room and said softly, "Luckily, he was there. If it weren't for him, I might not have made it. But anyway, since the ceremony won't be held for a while, I'll stay here and care for him until he gets better. Please have someone bring some warm water. I want to clean him up." Su Qin opened her mouth intending to say something, but ultimately held back. It was undeniable. Without Tang San, her daughter wouldn't have succeeded in the tribulation. Although she was worried about his severe injuries, she nodded in agreement and went to arrange things personally. Mei Gongzi returned to Tang San's room, pulled a chair to the side of the bed, and sat there silently watching him. After the outer layer of charred skin had fallen off and his skin recovered, Tang San's complexion looked surprisingly good. Although his aura was still weak, he didn't seem to be in serious trouble. He wasn't exactly resting, however. He was wide awake and pondering. In fact, he had been conscious for a while, even before Mei Gongzi arrived. That day, the mysterious circles of heaven had neutralized most of the lightning, and thanks to the power of the Azura sword, they had somehow managed to carve out a path to life, but a significant amount of the lightning's residual power had still struck him. At that time, Tang San's mind had practically gone blank, but his divine consciousness had protected him. The projection of the sea god trident had safeguarded his sea of consciousness, and the rainbow skyfire liquid and spacetime beacon had also played their parts well, slowing down the lightning's descent and guiding part of it into the sea. Even so, the power of the heavenly tribulation was extremely terrifying, resulting in Tang San's body being carbonized. At this point, the golden armor transformation played a significant role. Even in the face of that incredible destructive power, it constantly absorbed the power of the lightning to refine itself. From the first golden fiend lightning to the final 6 directions lightning, Tang San's transcendent bloodline fed on this power. The final strike was too much to fully absorb, but the amount of energy the imprint took in was still substantial. When Tang San regained consciousness, he clearly felt that the other bloodline imprints were in a dormant state. Only the golden armor transformation imprint, at the center of the energy vortex in his dantian, shone like a small sun, radiating a brilliance far more dazzling than before. It could not be any closer to the 10th order. In fact, to Tang San's shock, it seemed to have already broken through. His cultivation hadn't reached the god level, so how had a bloodline imprint evolved to such a level? Tang San was perplexed, but as he pondered, it didn't take him very long to understand what was going on. The planar ruler held absolute control over the creatures of the plane. None of them could break through the limitations imposed by the plane. For instance, the plane where the demon continent was located was inherently powerful enough to produce beings on par with first-class gods, but that was a hard cap. Something more powerful than that simply could not exist. When Tang San fused the 2 bloodlines into the golden armor imprint, its innate potential exceeded this limit, which was why he had experienced such a strong backlash. If he hadn't used his transcendent divine weapon to block the plane's suppression, not only would he have been unable to complete the fusion, but he would have died without a question. Yet he had succeeded, and the golden armor transformation was now his to use. And it was a very peculiar thing. On the one hand, it still was beyond the limits imposed by the plane, but on the other hand, it was nevertheless something belonging to the plane, so it was now tolerated. And perhaps it was because it had already experienced the suppression of the plane that it was able to absorb the power of the tribulation like that. This situation was rather strange. It should have been impossible, yet here it was right in front of his eyes. Moreover, it appeared that the imprint had undergone some kind of evolution. While at a closer look it hadn't exactly reached the god level, it was definitely not inferior to typical god-level realms, even without considering its super bloodline power. If it weren't for the strength of the golden armor transformation, even if the final lightning strike didn't kill Tang San outright, it would have still shattered his body. The powerful divine intent of the sea god's trident was enough to protect his sea of consciousness, but that was that. On the other hand, the golden armor transformation protected his body, and especially his life force. While on the surface he looked like a chunk of carbonized wood, the golden armor transformation continuously repaired his body from within. From internal organs to meridians, bones, and finally the skin, everything was mended from inside out. Thus, when Mei Gongzi arrived, the golden armor transformation had almost completed repairing Tang San's body. In this state, Tang San's bodily functions had mostly recovered, and he could start using the mysterious heaven technique to further heal himself. The golden armor transformation was indeed marvelous. The other bloodline imprints were significantly affected by the lightning tribulation, so they couldn't do much. Meanwhile, the big brother had absorbed the tribulation's power, and the energy it released nourished the other bloodline imprints, allowing them to recover slowly. They would be back to full power in no time. For Tang San, the only actual loss in this case was actually his divine consciousness. To help Mei Gongzi succeed in her tribulation, he had to use the space-time beacon, the sea god's blessing, and then finally the Azura sword, all of which required the use of divine consciousness. This series of actions almost completely drained his divine consciousness. He also had to forcibly suppress his own power to avoid triggering an even more terrifying tribulation, and that was just draining the last drops of water on the bottom of a dried lake. But Mei Gongzi's tribulation was already incredibly powerful. Since he was a foreign element, and had power that broke the laws of the plane, if his own tribulation was somehow triggered, none of the 3 would have returned alive from the endless blue sea. The choice was simple. At this moment, his body was gradually recovering, but his divine consciousness was pitifully scarce. In fact, the remaining bit of his divine consciousness was as weak as when he reincarnated into this plane. Thankfully, unlike before, his spiritual power was now strong enough. By accompanying Mei Gongzi through the lightning tribulation, his spiritual power had also been subtly influenced. The recovery of his divine consciousness was just a matter of time, and in no way would it take as long as it had the first time. Tang San could sense Mei Gongzi leaving and returning. With her by his side, he felt an extraordinary peace, and the flow of his bloodline power seemed smoother. Not long after, Su Qin came in carrying a basin of warm water. Ah! She couldn't help but be shocked when she saw Tang San's face on the bed. "What's this?" Mei Gongzi whispered. "Keep your voice down." His body has been self-repairing. As you can see, the burns are only on the surface and they're slowly healing. With proper rest, he should be fine. Ever since Mei Gongxi's tribulation, with the appearance of those massive tribulation clouds, Su Qin felt her understanding constantly being overturned. A person who had been nearly carbonized by a lightning tribulation could recover just like that? How resilient was this young man? But this was undoubtedly a good thing. Go rest, Mom. I'll take care of him here, Mei Gongxi said to her mother. Okay, you just woke up too. Don't overexert yourself. I'll get you something to eat. Thank you, Mom. Mei Gongxi hugged her mother. Now that her heart was at ease, a smile appeared on her pretty face. Seeing her daughter's seemingly more radiant beauty, Su Qin touched her long hair and sighed. You're still so young, but the pressure on you is immense. I'm not afraid. Isn't he here to help me? Mei Gongxi chuckled, pointing at Tang San, who could not possibly look less helpful as he lay on the bed like a dead fish. Suin smiled gently. Right. She went out to get food, and Mei Gongxi began to use a towel soaked in warm water to clean Tang San's skin, carefully wiping away the traces of charred remains. When she started cleaning the lower areas, she was startled. The charred shell in those regions had not been cleaned off yet, but it was now beginning to crack and reveal what lay underneath. Mei Gongxi, despite her shyness, closed her eyes and continued cleaning him, knowing that the charred shell had to be very uncomfortable. She kept reminding herself in her mind that he was unconscious. By the time she finished cleaning Tang San's entire body, Mei Gongxi's pretty face was as red as a ripe apple. She even changed the bedsheets for him, then sighed in relief. At least he looked more comfortable now. Su Qin brought some food, but Mei Gongxi only ate a little and drank some meat broth. Now that she was a proper god, she could survive by absorbing the spiritual energy in the air, making her less dependent on food. With just a slight pull of her divine consciousness, the spatial energy in the air would naturally gather toward her. This feeling was very magical, as if any place she could perceive was her domain. After her mother left, Mei Gongxi sat by the bed and began to try probing Tang San's sea of consciousness with her divine consciousness. Although he had woken up briefly before, she could feel that his spiritual fluctuations were very weak, and his sea of consciousness was in a much worse state than his body. Her divine consciousness quietly entered Tang San's sea of consciousness without encountering any obstacles. She could vaguely feel that there seemed to be a bridge between their spiritual worlds. As her divine consciousness approached his sea of consciousness, this bridge naturally connected them, even guiding her divine consciousness into his inner sea of consciousness. At this moment, Tang San's sea of consciousness appeared empty, with his spiritual power thin and his mental fluctuations weak. Mei Gongxi cautiously extended her divine consciousness further inside, and was immediately shocked. Although Tang San's spiritual power was depleted, his sea of consciousness was simply boundless. He hadn't even become a god yet, and his sea of consciousness was already this expansive? As her divine consciousness entered, the sword intent of the Azura sword in Mei Gongxi's own sea consciousness seemed to ripple slightly, and a trace of the Azura sword's sword intent accompanied her divine consciousness into Tang San's sea of consciousness. With the arrival of the sword intent, Tang San's spiritual power began to stir, as if stimulated, subtly undergoing some changes. Mei Gongxi silently sensed that Tang San's spiritual power seemed to be recovering and rising due to the influence of the Azura sword. That minute amount of energy from the sword seemed to actually substitute his spirit core, accelerating the recovery of his spiritual power. What was going on? Was it because their spiritual powers were connected? Or was it due to their past interactions? Or perhaps it was the result of their past life connection. Her guesses weren't entirely accurate. Tang San's very special state was the most important reason for this change. His divine consciousness had been greatly depleted, and the remaining spiritual power had nothing to give it a direction. Although Tang San was conscious, he could only gradually allow his spiritual power to recover. But when Mei Gongxi's divine consciousness entered, it was different. The Azura sword wasn't just a divine weapon she controlled in her past life. It was also Tang San's divine weapon. The Azura sword had never abandoned Tang San, so when it entered his sea of consciousness, it was like coming home. Due to his weakened divine consciousness, Tang San found it difficult to do anything with his spiritual power. However, with the arrival of the Azura sword's aura, it took over the task of guiding his spiritual power, naturally mobilizing, reviving, and gathering it. It even began to convert it into divine consciousness. Tang San felt his sea of consciousness surging violently, making him feel more alert and overjoyed. His spiritual power fluctuated as guided by the sword intent. The remaining bit of divine consciousness returned to the center of his spiritual landscape, and the scattered spiritual power gathered around it. If he had to do this himself, it might have taken up to half a month to complete. But with the Azura Sword's aura, it was done in mere minutes. If Tang San wished, he could wake up right now. From here on, the recovery of his spiritual power and divine consciousness would go swimmingly. Mei Gongzi could naturally sense the positive changes in Tang San's spiritual power. She decided to remain still, keeping her divine consciousness within Tang San's sea of consciousness while observing its changes. Gradually, Mei Gongzi noticed that Tang San's spiritual power was starting to coil into a vortex around her divine consciousness. The sword intent of the Azura sword grew even stronger, guiding more and more spiritual power to recover. As his spiritual power grew stronger, Tang San's sea of consciousness gradually brightened. Yet Mei Gongzi's divine consciousness did not feel out of place there. It seemed a natural part of it. In fact, Mei Gongzi could even feel her own divine consciousness receiving some feedback, becoming increasingly active. She didn't know how much time had passed, but a small crystal slowly appeared in the center of Tang San's sea of consciousness, growing from a tiny point and gradually becoming larger. That was Tang San's spirit core, with his divine consciousness at its center. Although the spirit core was very small and the internal divine consciousness nothing but a speck of dust, it had finally been restored. From here on, it really was just a matter of time. Even without the presence of the sword intent, Tang San's recovery wouldn't be any slower than usual. Of course, with the sword intent present, things would go much faster. At the same time, Mei Gongzi's divine consciousness effectively assisted in converting Tang San's spiritual power into divine consciousness, saving Tang San a significant amount of time. Thus, Mei Gongzi clearly sensed Tang San's spirit core gradually enlarging, and his sea of consciousness stabilizing. The process was wondrous. She felt as if she were in the process of creating a world, and she had just created its core. Gradually, as the spirit core enlarged to a certain extent, Mei Gongzi vaguely saw a trace of golden light emerge. After its appearance, the sword intent of the Azura sword seemed stimulated, interacting with it and releasing even more power. The growth rate of Tang San's spirit core further increased, and his sea of consciousness gradually felt full. The spiritual interaction between Tang San and Mei Gongzi lasted a full day and night. When Tang San's sea of consciousness was once again filled with spiritual power, and his spirit core had returned to its original size, Mei Gongzi finally withdrew her divine consciousness. When she opened her eyes and looked at Tang San, she found that his complexion was rosy, and his breathing was long and steady. He was clearly much better. She was amazed at how she could help him recover in such a way. But the thing that surprised her the most was that Tang San had no defenses against her divine consciousness. One sea of consciousness was bound to strongly reject any foreign intrusion, yet she had experienced nothing of the kind. On the contrary, the feeling of their divine consciousnesses interacting without barriers gave her a particularly wonderful sensation. The spiritual contact was so unimpeded that it was almost as if they were physically bearing themselves to each other. Meanwhile, in just one day, Tang San's hair and eyebrows had grown out a bit, making him look less like an egg. His facial features were soft yet well-defined. Mei Gongzi couldn't help but stare at him in a daze. His spiritual power had mostly recovered, and now it was slowly being refined into divine consciousness. Mei Gongzi didn't know to what extent his divine consciousness needed to recover to return to its original state. However, she could feel that the fluctuations of his internal energy were growing stronger with the recovery of his spiritual power, even stronger than before. In the following days she stayed by Tang San's side, using the sword intent of the Azura sword and her divine consciousness to help him stimulate his spirit core and convert spiritual power into divine consciousness. However, Tang San did not wake up. He seemed to be in a kind of deep meditation. Finally, Mei Gongzi's big day arrived. Her mother had already come twice to call her. Mei Gongzi looked at Tang San on the bed and said softly, "Rest well. I have to attend the ceremony and become the leader of the Peacock Demon clan. I'll come back to see you after that. Take care and wake up soon, okay? If you're awake when I return, that'll be the best gift for me. Don't worry, things will go smooth. I'm not the same old me, and for the time being, it's my turn to protect you." She touched the stubble that had just grown on his head, feeling a slight itch in her palm. "You know, you look really cute right now, my little encyclopedia." With a light chuckle, Mei Gongzi stood up and returned to her room to prepare. Today was an extremely important day for her and the entire Peacock Demon clan, as it would determine the future of their entire race. Kali City was unusually quiet today. Yes, quiet. The change of the clan leader was undoubtedly the most important event for Kali City. However, many days ago, rumors had already begun to spread that the successor chosen by the Peacock Great Demon King was a human. How could a human lead the Peacock Demon clan? How could a human become the ruler of Kali City? This was something the ancestral court would not tolerate, a disgrace to Kali City. Various scattered rumors were flying around, and the Peacock Demon Clan's officials did not clarify anything. Then the event was postponed for 5 days. The previous intense energy fluctuation over the sea was rumored to be heavenly punishment, a divine retribution for the Peacock Demon Clan's wrong decision. Thus, even though today was the appointed day, there was no bustling scene. Anyone with eyes could see that this was going to turn into a very serious internal conflict. Hence, many great nobles had strictly ordered their clansmen not to go out today and to stay at home. The great nobles of Kali City were now divided into 3 factions. One faction naturally supported the Peacock Great Demon King. For example, the other Horned Deers and Golden Deers were part of this faction. They had been closely tied to the Peacock Great Demon King since the beginning, and they would share in his glory and loss. Then there was the neutral faction, which was the largest. Some didn't fully understand the situation and only knew that the Peacock Great Demon King's chosen successor was a daughter with human blood, not a pure-blooded descendant. Lastly, there was the opposition faction. The opposition came from within the Peacock Demon Clan, and their voices had been present for a long time but were always suppressed by the Peacock Great Demon King. And today, as the inheritance ceremony was about to begin, all conflicts would have no other choice but to erupt. Therefore, Kali City was seething with undercurrents at this moment, and these undercurrents could turn into monstrous waves at any time. Mei Gongzi put on a silver gown, the most authentic noble attire of the Peacock Demon Clan. It was long enough that it trailed behind her, and silver patterns adorned every corner of the luxurious gown. The Peacock Great Demon King had told her that their ancestor, the Peacock Demon Emperor, wore a similar gown when inheriting the throne. When the tall and graceful Mei Gongzi donned the gown, she looked stunningly beautiful. "Are you ready?" The Peacock Great Demon King was also dressed in grand attire today, wearing a silver robe and a crown on his head. This was the crown of the Peacock Demon Clan's leader, the supreme symbol of the position, a divine artifact known as the Celestial Star Crown. Mei Gongzi looked at her father and smiled. "There's nothing to prepare." "Good. After today, you will be the leader of the Peacock Demon Clan. Remember your promise to me. No matter what happens in the future, you must protect our clan."
Mei Gongzi nodded.
At this moment, her emotions were also surging. But amidst the excitement, she felt a tinge of sadness. She couldn't forget the vision she saw when she first gained the approval of the Celestial Plume, where he was by her side as she was admired by all and other clans submitted to her. Unfortunately, now he was bedridden. Taking a deep breath to calm her emotions, she thought, "Let's finish this so I can return to him." In front of the ancestral castle of the Peacock Demon Clan was a wide plaza, trapezoidal in shape. It was now richly decorated, as appropriate for such a ceremony. A high platform stood on the plaza near the castle, facing Kali City. A red carpet extended from the castle to the platform, and on both sides of the platform, seats were neatly arranged. The left side was filled with members of the Peacock Demon Clan, while the right side had representatives from the various noble families of Kali City. The weather was excellent today. Sunlight bathed the plaza, and the grand castle and mountains behind it created a solemn yet vibrant atmosphere. The most prestigious Kali City figures and the highest-ranking members of the Peacock Demon Clan sat in the front rows on either side of the plaza. However, the atmosphere was somewhat oppressive and heavy. The noble spectators whispered among themselves, but kept their voices low. Their expressions were varied. Some worried, some excited, and some frowning. On the side of the Peacock Demon Clan, the atmosphere was particularly heavy. The elders sitting in the front row had solemn expressions and spoke little. Sitting in the first seat in the front row was a beautiful woman who appeared to be in her 40s. She wore a splendid silver gown, her eyes closed as if in meditation. Even just sitting there, she exuded a majestic aura that spoke volumes of her strength and status. This was the consort of the Peacock Great Demon King, second only to the Peacock Great Demon King in terms of status. Many of the great nobles across the plaza frequently glanced in her direction. Whether today's ceremony would proceed smoothly depended greatly on her. This consort held a pivotal position in the clan, as she was the one who inherited the direct bloodline of the former Peacock Demon Emperor. Yes, although the Peacock Great Demon King was also from the main bloodline, he was not actually a direct descendant of the Peacock Demon Emperor. In other words, he had not been chosen to inherit the throne because his ancestors were the most outstanding. Rather, his ability to secure the throne was inseparable from this consort, a direct descendant of the clan's only emperor. The Peacock Great Demon King had secured his position with her support. This consort was also the chief elder of the Peacock Demon Clan, and a peak-level Great Demon King second only to her husband in power. 36 burly bear race warriors blew 36 horns, the deep reverberations marking the prelude to the ceremony. Immediately, the entire plaza fell silent, and the consort sitting in the first seat on the left finally opened her eyes. Her gaze was very calm, and no emotions were visible on her fair visage. The second horn resounded, its sound carrying far, clearly audible even in the farthest corners of Kali City. The third horn resounded, and all the nobles present, including those from the Peacock Demon clan, stood up. The 3 horn blasts signified the official start of the ceremony. The castle gates slowly opened at this moment, drawing the attention of everyone present. Elegantly dressed, Mei Gongzi held the Peacock Great Demon King's arm, walking slowly out of the castle and toward the back of the platform. The horns sounded once more. The Peacock Great Demon King walked up the platform with the support of his daughter. On their side, the Peacock Demon clan members displayed their magnificent tail feathers in full bloom. As they ascended the platform, all the spectators present slightly bowed their heads to the Peacock Great Demon King. Only the consort remained upright, her gaze calm as she watched the father and daughter on stage. The horn sounded one final time. The Peacock Great Demon King's gaze swept over all the spectators present, first looking to the left at the members of the Peacock Demon clan, and then to the right at the nobles from the clans associated with them. Today is the most important event for our clan. I am thankful to all the guests who have come to witness it. The Peacock Great Demon King's voice was deep and carried far. The nobles on the right side bowed once more in salute. The Peacock Great Demon King gestured for Mei Gongzi to release his arm, then stepped forward, spreading his arms as if to embrace Kali City. Everyone, please be seated. The people on both sides sat down, their eyes all focused on him. The Peacock Great Demon King looked at the distant Kali City, his eyes shimmering with a peculiar light. Yes, at this moment he was still the ruler of this vast main city. But it was just for today. Now was the time for the transfer of power, and tomorrow's sun would greet his successor. Was he truly willing to let go? He couldn't say a hard and decisive yes. Power is difficult to acquire, and certainly even more difficult to relinquish. But he knew what he had to do. Since I took charge of the Peacock Demon clan 30 years ago, I have been diligent and dedicated, not daring to slack off for even a moment. Our clan has no emperor, and although we are in a corner of the world, we face many difficulties. It is with everyone's help that Kali City and our Peacock Demon clan have reached today's prosperity. The clans in the city live and work in peace, and our Peacock Demon clan can thrive. As the clan leader and the city lord, I am truly pleased. But I also bear a heavy responsibility. I constantly remind myself that no matter what, I must ensure the continuation of the Peacock Demon clan, keeping it in its rightful place among the strongest. I have always strived to go further to reach that level, because only then could I ensure the Peacock Demon clan had no future worries. But I did not succeed. My talent was ultimately not enough. I could only manage Kali City better, making everything here more harmonious. Today, I can hold my head high and tell my ancestors that for the past 30 years, I have no regrets regarding the way I've led the Peacock Demon clan in Kali City. With these words, all the nobles present, including those from the Peacock Demon clan, bowed to him once more. The Peacock Great Demon King was right. Among his generation in the Peacock Demon clan, he was undoubtedly the most outstanding. Since inheriting the position of clan leader, everything he had done had indeed brought the Peacock Demon clan and Kali City increasing prosperity. Over the past 30 years he had transformed the entire Peacock Demon clan and made Kali City as prosperous as any other main city, in spite of its remote location. He had even established the wealthiest merchant caravan in the Empyrean Dominion, and even though it had been done with the collaboration of many others, all of it was under his leadership. There was not one individual in Kali City who did not admire him for this. Even the queen consort slightly bowed, expressing her approval of his words. Feeling the emotions of the spectators, a proud smile appeared at the corner of the Peacock Great Demon King's mouth. For 30 years, everything he had done had been seen by the various clans living in Kali City. The phrase "no regrets" was his greatest pride, and this phrase he could utter with a clear conscience. But I have grown tired. I intended to fight for Kali City and our Peacock Demon clan for another 10 or 100 years. But the arrival of powerful external enemies doesn't allow me to continue. Kali City is the foundation of our Peacock Demon clan, and I cannot let any being take it away, not even an emperor. That is why there was that battle last time. In that battle I borrowed the power of our ancestors to repel the strong enemy, but it also damaged my essence. To ensure the better continuation of our clan under a more capable leader, I have decided on today's ceremony. Today, I will step down from the position of clan leader and pass it on to a more suitable person. Please reconsider, clan leader. shouted all the members of the Peacock Demon clan, bowing simultaneously. A cold smile appeared at the corner of the Peacock Great Demon King's mouth. He could certainly hear how much reluctance and dissatisfaction were hidden in this plea. My mind is made up, there's no need to persuade me. I am certain that under the new clan leader, the Peacock Demon clan will reach even greater heights. Soon, we will stand once more at the pinnacle of the Empyrean dominion. As he spoke, he turned to look at Mei Gongzi. It is my decision that from today, I will step down from the position of clan leader and pass it on to... Wait a moment. A cold voice interrupted the Peacock Great Demon King. The queen consort, who sat in the first seat on the Peacock Demon clan's side, had stood up again, facing the platform. The Peacock Great Demon King and the queen consort locked eyes, and his face immediately darkened. Although he had anticipated this, when the queen consort truly stepped forward to stop him, the Peacock Great Demon King's expression still turned extremely ugly. This was undoubtedly a great humiliation for the Peacock Demon clan, and for him as the Peacock Great Demon King in front of all the nobles of Kali City. The queen consort looked intently at the Peacock Great Demon King and said sternly, "The succession of a clan leader is the most important matter for any race. It requires discussion by the Council of Elders and ultimately their approval. Yet it seems that you have bypassed this process. Doesn't the new clan leader need the support of the Council of Elders?" The Peacock Great Demon King replied in a deep voice, "I have already informed the Council of Elders of my decision. The succession of the clan leader does indeed require the support of the Council of Elders. But according to our clan's rules, the next clan leader is designated by the current one. The Council of Elders' role is to cooperate, not to question. As the chief elder, are you questioning my decision?" The queen consort responded calmly, "Exactly. I have just one question for the king. Among your own offspring or our many outstanding descendants, is there not one who can be a successor? Why choose a vassal as the clan leader? This has never occurred in the history of the Empyrean Dominion, especially considering that our clan has an imperial legacy. As the chief elder, I have the right and duty to question the clan leader's decision if I believe it erroneous. The matter of the new clan leader pertains to the continuity of our clan and its future. How can a leader that lacks pure blood convince the masses and lead our clan?" The Peacock Great Demon King did not get angry. He looked down at the queen consort with a calm and superior gaze. Indeed, little Mei has human blood in her veins. Furthermore, she also carries the bloodline of the White Tiger Demon Emperor. I believe everyone here is already aware and has confirmed this news. But not long ago, she won both the individual and the doubles championships in the Ancestral Court Elite competition. She defeated all the heirs of the emperors, becoming the first double champion in the competition's history. With such extraordinary talent, how could she not lead our Peacock Demon clan to prosperity? The queen consort responded calmly, "No matter how excellent she is not a pure clan member. For any clan, the purity of bloodline is paramount. Without the leader having a pure bloodline, how can our clan's heritage remain pure? Therefore, no matter what, I cannot agree with her inheriting the position of clan leader. This is also the will of the Council of Elders. I hope that you will reconsider. You should know that if more than 80% of the elders in the council agree, they have the right to impeach the clan leader." The Peacock Great Demon King laughed. "Are you suggesting that even I, the clan leader, should be impeached? Then tell me, who can inherit this position? The external threats are not yet resolved, and yet we are starting to tear apart from within." Seeing the smile on his face, the queen consort frowned slightly. She knew her husband well, and she admired him greatly. When it came to cultivation, she considered herself not much weaker than him, but in terms of leadership and capability, she acknowledged her net inferiority. Over the past 30 years, under the Peacock Great Demon King's leadership, the Peacock Demon clan had indeed made tremendous progress, and that was precisely the reason the Ancestral Court was wary of them. If not for his efforts, Kali City might have been lost long ago, and not just when the Crystal Phoenix Demon Emperor appeared. After all, more than one Demon Emperor was without a main city, and the Ancestral Court could have simply granted the city to someone else. She believed she was well prepared. Yet the Peacock Great Demon King's composure at this moment made her feel a sudden unease. The queen consort said coldly, "For the continuation of our clan, this is something we must do. I ask you to reconsider, clan leader." The Peacock Great Demon King waved his hand and said, "No need to reconsider. Peacock Demon clan, all elders step forward." With his command, the elders sitting in the front row on the Peacock Demon clan side all stood up. To become an elder, one needed to have reached godhood. At this moment, there were 16 elders of the Peacock Demon clan standing up. Including the queen consort, there were 17. This meant that apart from the Peacock Great Demon King, the clan boasted at least 17 god-level experts, among them some Great Demon Kings as well. The elders bowed slightly to the Peacock Great Demon King. The Peacock Great Demon King calmly said, "According to the Queen Consort, over 80% of you do not think Little May is suitable to inherit the position of clan leader. Do 80% of you oppose me as the clan leader?" Wang Han, one of the Great Demon Kings, stepped forward and respectfully said, "Clan leader, as you just mentioned, under your leadership, our clan has prospered for 30 years, and Cali City has flourished. This is all thanks to you. We would never oppose you. No one is more qualified to be the leader of the Peacock Demon Clan than you. However, what Her Majesty said reflects our thoughts as well. The bloodline of the Peacock Demon Clan needs to remain pure, so we hope the position of clan leader can be inherited by a pure-blooded member." The Peacock Great Demon King looked at Wang Han, a hint of disappointment in his eyes. "Cousin, I didn't expect even you to question my decision. Do you know why I chose Little May to inherit the throne? It's not out of any personal motive. It's because only she can lead the Peacock Demon Clan forward. Only she can give the clan a real chance to reach the pinnacle again." Wang Han lowered his head and did not speak further, but his stance was clear. The Peacock Great Demon King then looked at the Queen Consort. "To impeach me and overturn my decision, you need 80% of the elders, right? You must be quite confident. So let's proceed. If 14 elders oppose me, then the ceremony ends here, and so does my leadership." Upon hearing his words, the Queen Consort was shocked. She had indeed prepared for this, but she had never intended to impeach the Peacock Great Demon King. Whether in the Peacock Demon Clan or in Cali City, his prestige could hardly be any higher, and she did not want to break ties with her husband. She was confident in preventing him from passing the position of clan leader to Mei Gongzi, but she could not possibly strip him of his title. Moreover, if he weren't mortally wounded, she might not even achieve the former. Looking at the calm Peacock Great Demon King, however, she suddenly realized that perhaps her confidence might be misplaced. At this moment, the Peacock Great Demon King gave her no time to ponder, and coldly said, "Elders who support Little May inheriting the position of clan leader, step to the right. Those who do not, stay where you are. We will decide things today, and we will do it out in the open." With these words, the elders couldn't help but look up at the Peacock Great Demon King. The Queen Consort turned around, looking intently at the elders. Wang Han raised his head, his gaze complicated and his expression bitter as he looked at the Peacock Great Demon King. "Your Majesty, I am sorry." The Peacock Great Demon King ignored him, his expression calm as he looked at the other elders. At that moment, among the 16 elders, a figure slowly stepped forward, moving to the right. As this figure stepped out, both the Queen Consorts and Wang Han's pupils constricted instantly. Wang Han exclaimed, "Sister Yu." Yes, the one who stepped out first was none other than Wang Yu, Wang Han's younger sister, who was also at the Great Demon King level. When the Crystal Phoenix Demon Emperor arrived, she and her brother Wang Han fought against the two Phoenix Great Demon Kings together. Now she was the first to step out. On the side opposing her brother, Wang Yu moved to the right without hesitation, then looked at her brother with a calm gaze. "I support His Majesty's decisions because his decisions are correct. Ask yourselves, has the clan leader made any wrong decisions in the past 30 years? Any? Brother, you should understand my words the most. I know that if today's ceremony doesn't succeed, our nephew will be the most likely to inherit the throne. But I cannot go against the clan leader's will. I'm sorry." As it turned out, the reason Wang Han sided with the Queen Consort was the Queen Consort's promise. As long as Mei Gongzi did not inherit the throne, the heir would be Wang Han's son. The Queen Consort's biggest weakness was that each of the sons born to her, and the Peacock Great Demon King, was worse than the last. For example, Wang Yan was one of the more outstanding ones among the legitimate sons, which, well, said it all. But Wang Han's situation was different. He had a son who was 7 years older than Mei Gongzi. He was truly outstanding, and had been strictly taught by Wang Han since childhood. Now he had considerable strength. In fact, he could be considered the best among his peers. Wang Han had always supported the Peacock Great Demon King, but in such times, who wouldn't look after their own personal interests? What he'd never expected was that his sister would stand against him. His face turned every color of the rainbow, and he simply couldn't find any words to say. While he stood there in stupefaction, several figures slowly walked out, led by the one who appeared to be the oldest among elders, third highest in rank after Wang Han and his sister. No fewer than 7 people moved to the right side. Out of 17 elders, 9 now stood on the right, indicating their support for the clan leader. The Queen Consort had remained perfectly calm until now, But when she saw this scene, she turned pale. Although she had guessed there might be issues when the Peacock Great Demon King announced a public decision, she hadn't expected that more than half of the elders would choose to side with her husband. These elders had previously communicated their support for her. How could this be? Second uncle, didn't you say that bloodline purity is the most important? The queen consort couldn't help but say to the third-ranked elder. The elder sighed and said, His Majesty gave me a reason I couldn't refute. I believe that His Majesty's decisions are indeed for the future of our clan. You. The queen consort was so angry that she turned to the Peacock Great Demon King. I wonder if His Majesty can also give me a reason I can't refute. The Peacock Great Demon King sighed and said, Even if I did, you still wouldn't agree with my decision, so what's the point? His cold gaze swept over the elders who still stood on the queen consort's side. We are facing a great enemy, and each of you should know that the biggest problem for our clan comes from the outside, from those who want to occupy Cali City. Yet, despite knowing this, you disregard the fundamental interests of our clan and oppose them for your selfish gains. Are you intent on driving our Peacock Demon clan to its destruction? For a moment, those elders were speechless. Under the immense pressure of the Peacock Great Demon King's powerful aura, their faces looked rather unpleasant. The Peacock Great Demon King looked at the queen consort again. The results of the selection are out now. It appears that I will not be impeached today, Grand Elder. The queen consort said coldly, That is fine by me, but our clan has rules. If there are objections to the clan leader's heir, the Elders' Council can request the 100 Birds Greet the Sun ceremony to determine whether the heir has the right to inherit. The Peacock Great Demon King said calmly, Are you sure you want to do this? You should know that proposing 100 Birds Greet the Sun means challenging the authority of the clan leader. If you fail, the proposing elder will be stripped of their position and bear all the consequences. 1. The original phrase is actually 100 birds pay homage to the phoenix, and it's a 4-character idiom, chengyu, often used as a blessing, because it refers to an extraordinary person to whom everyone must bow. However, the author actually replaces the phoenix character with the sun/yang character, clearly to serve as a reminder that the phoenix is not necessarily the king of birds in this novel. The queen consort said faintly, When you denied my child his rightful position, did you ever think about the sadness in a mother's heart? Without my support, how could you have ever become the clan leader back then? Yet for a human woman, you're even willing to let someone who's not even a pure-blooded member of the clan inherit your position. How can you face our ancestors? As she spoke, the queen consort made a grasping motion in the air with her right hand, and a silver scepter appeared in her grasp. The silver scepter looked magnificent, adorned with a silver peacock head, and behind the head, silver feathers spread out like a fan. I, the Grand Elder of the Peacock Demon Clan, request that the heir apparent undergo the 100 Birds Greet the Sun ceremony, she said, raising the scepter high. Seeing the scepter, all the Peacock Demon Clan members present, including the Peacock Great Demon King, slightly bowed. This scepter was part of the inheritance from the Peacock Great Demon Emperor, a divine artifact and a symbol of her. Although the clan leader's position wasn't always passed to her direct descendants, it was these direct descendants that inherited the scepter, so that her contributions to the Peacock Demon Clan may never be forgotten. One of these descendants would become the Grand Elder of the clan, and their role was to balance the clan leader's power. The current Grand Elder, however, had become the clan leader's wife, which resulted in power being centralized. Had he been a poor leader, that would have been problematic, but it turned out to be the exact opposite. This union allowed the Peacock Great Demon King to implement his policies unimpeded and bring massive prosperity to the Peacock Demon Clan. With that said, the Queen Consort was not exaggerating. Without her support, it would not have been easy for the Peacock Great Demon King to become the clan leader. The Peacock Great Demon King looked at the scepter with a complex expression on his face. He sighed softly and said, Must it be this way? The Queen Consort's gaze was stubborn. Yes, it must be this way. If the 100 Birds homing ceremony proves me wrong, I am willing to resign from the position of Grand Elder and accept any punishment. If I am right, then we will need a new clan leader. The Peacock Great Demon King looked at her, his voice suddenly softer. All these years I indeed have many things to apologize to you for. But ever since the Crystal Phoenix posed a great threat to me back then, I had to make some decisions. And some things I couldn't tell you. If I tell you now that the one I have always loved is only you, would you believe it? The Queen Consort looked at him coldly. Clan leader, this is our clan's most important inheritance ceremony. Don't taint it with lies that even you don't believe. You love me? If you loved me, how could you focus all your attention on that woman? How could you let her daughter become your heir? If you truly loved me, you should have devoted all your efforts to nurturing our children, not let things go and focus all your energy on a half-blood mutt. My mind is made up. The ceremony must be held. Unless she voluntarily gives up her rights, the ceremony must be held. I accept. Mei Gongzi said coldly, her face icy. The Peacock Great Demon King did not look at Mei Gongzi. His gaze remained fixed on the queen consort. His eyes showed a complex glimmer as he sighed deeply and said, "All these years I've owed you a lot, and I'm afraid I won't have the time to repay you. But since you're set on having 100 birds greet the sun, very well then." After saying this, his expression returned to normal. He cast a dignified gaze over all the onlookers and said in a deep voice, "The 100 birds greet the sun ceremony is our clan's ultimate test for the clan leader. Within 3 days, any clan member can challenge the heir apparent. The heir apparent cannot refuse any challenge. There will be a break of 1 feather's time between each fight." Many of the outsiders weren't aware of the actual significance of 100 birds greet the sun. It was the highest level recognition battle for the clan leader, and it was not something that only the Peacock Demon clan did. It was common to all avian demon clans. The inheritance of a clan was of utmost importance. When there were disagreements within the clan, there were multiple ways to resolve them, and 100 birds greet the sun was the harshest of them all. No one outside of the Council of Elders even had the right to propose it. Moreover, regardless of the result, that elder had to endure severe punishment from the clan. If the ceremony proved that the heir was unqualified, the punishment would be light. The elder would get away with a slap on the wrist for questioning authority. But if the ceremony proved that the heir was in fact qualified, the elder would be punished as decided by the new clan leader, which could well mean a death sentence. Thus, nobody would dare to propose the ceremony unless they were absolutely certain of their success. After all, it meant gambling with one's life. On the other side of the problem, the 3 consecutive days of challenges were extremely demanding for the future clan leader. The demon clans revered strength. That was the fundamental requirement for a clan leader. Even the Peacock Great Demon King, with all his leadership skills, would have never been accepted if he hadn't been the strongest member of the clan at the time. Thus, the term 100 birds actually referred to 100 challengers. Although the number was usually not that high, since it was hard to find 100 qualified challengers, it was not unusual to have a few dozens of bouts. The so-called 1 feather's time referred to the time it took for a challenger's precious feather to burn after their defeat. Depending on their cultivation level, the burning time varied, but it usually was between 10 and 20 minutes. In other words, undergoing 100 birds greet the sun meant that Mei Gongzi had to fight fresh opponents for 3 days and nights with minimal rest. Of course, it wasn't absolutely necessary for the heir to accept all challenges personally. Their supporters could also accept challenges on the heir's behalf. However, if a supporter accepted a challenge and lost, they would be executed immediately, as this was considered desecrating the ceremony. Thus, this challenge was extremely brutal. Anyone daring to risk their life to accept challenges on behalf of the clan leader's heir had to be absolutely loyal, as failure meant certain death. At the same time, having supporters with the confidence to do this proved the extent of the heir's power and influence. The Peacock Great Demon King stepped aside and pointed to the high platform with his right hand. "This will be the battlefield for the 100 birds greet the sun ceremony. Time starts now. Challengers can come up at any time. This is up to you now." The last sentence was directed at Mei Gongzi. After speaking, the Peacock Great Demon King shimmered with silver light and in the next instant, appeared in front of the platform, next to the queen consort. The queen consort looked at her husband, now so close to her, and the stubbornness in her eyes finally wavered slightly but quickly returned to normal. On the high platform, Mei Gongzi took 2 steps to the center, where the Peacock Great Demon King had stood. She calmly looked at the Peacock Demon clan members below and said indifferently, "My 100 birds greet the sun is not limited to our clan. Any Demon King resident of Kali City can challenge me." Silver light shot from her eyes as she spoke, and a crown slowly appeared, glowing above her head. "Golden crown Demon King? No, that crown is not golden, it's..." Wang Han blurted out, his voice filled with shock. Demon King, Great Demon King, Demon Emperor. These were the 3 levels of godhood, and in principle a Demon King was just like any other Demon King. They were all 10th order demons. But in practice there were major differences between them, even among members of the same clan. For instance, having the Peacock Golden Crown manifest upon reaching godhood meant possessing the purest bloodline power and most exquisite control over it. Yet Mei Gongzi had the Peacock Golden Crown even before reaching that level. This was why the Peacock Great Demon King had no qualms raising her as the heir, despite her having human blood. Whatever her other heritage was, Her peacock demon blood was extremely pure. Being a first-tier bloodline, the peacock demon bloodline allowed many of the clan members to become demon kings. However, the peacock golden crown signified something more. That even at the demon king level, they still had the potential to go higher. A golden crown demon king was almost certain to reach the level of great demon king, and only the purest bloodline could give birth to a golden crown. It meant that the potential of the bloodline was still not fully tapped, and it could still evolve. The more complete the crown, the greater one's potential, the greater one's strength, and the greater one's status. The peacock great demon king had obviously been a golden crown demon king himself, and his peacock golden crown was quite a sight to behold. But even that paled in comparison to what his daughter was displaying now. Mei Gongxi's crown was platinum, and not only was it complete, but it looked as if it was forged out of metal. It didn't give off the illusory feeling of an energy construct, but rather looked solid as could be. Seeing this, the queen consort, Wang Han, and the elders behind them consort all had incredibly unpleasant expressions. They now understood why the other elders had broken their agreement and turned to support the peacock great demon king. There were people with a peacock golden crown in every generation, but a platinum one had only appeared once in the history of the peacock demon clan. Specifically, in the case of the peacock demon emperor. This precedent showed that possessing a platinum peacock crown could mean the potential to become an emperor in the future. For the peacock demon clan, what could be more important than having their own demon emperor? The demon king supporting the queen consort even looked somewhat resentfully at the peacock great demon king, as if asking why he hadn't informed them earlier. If they had known, they might have supported him too. The peacock great demon king stood silently by the queen consort's side, as if nothing had happened and none of this concerned him. With the appearance of the platinum crown, the young generation of the peacock demon clan, who had been eager to challenge Mei Gongxi, all fell silent. As it turned out, she was a demon king now, so only other demon kings could challenge her. Those below godhood were not even qualified to stand on the same stage, especially considering that the stronger the bloodline, the greater the gap between cultivation orders. Moreover, Mei Gongxi was the double champion of the ancestral court elite competition. Even if they attempted a battle of attrition, that was on the premise that they were able to exhaust her. The recovery abilities of a demon king were entirely different from those of a demon at the ninth order. At this point, 100 birds greet the sun seemed like a joke. Not to mention the peacock demon clan. Even the entire Kali city couldn't gather 100 demon king level experts. Mei Gongxi's calm gaze swept over the peacock demon clan. How many demon kings did they have? Barely over a dozen. The appearance of the platinum crown instantly stunned the entire audience. The queen consort finally understood why the peacock great demon king had been so confident all along. It wasn't just because he had persuaded the elders to support him, but how he had persuaded the elders. Clearly, those on his side knew about it beforehand, that Mei Gongxi truly had the foundation and strength to be the clan leader. But this also caused the queen consort's hatred to surge. She hated that it wasn't her and her children who had such abilities. Why was it a child he had with another woman who was so excellently nurtured? The queen consort looked at the peacock great demon king beside her, her eyes reddening with resentment. Her hand gripping the scepter had turned blue-white from the force of her grip. The peacock great demon king felt her gaze and turned to look at her. At this moment his gaze was complex, even tinged with sadness. To the queen consort's shock, the peacock great demon king reached out and grasped her hand. The queen consort instinctively burst out with her bloodline power to break free, but the peacock great demon king held her hand tightly. "Please wait a moment. I will tell you everything." The voice of the peacock great demon king echoed in her mind, gentle and soothing. Just like when they had first been together. The queen consort was momentarily stunned. For some reason, hearing his voice made her heart soften for a moment. But looking at the shining platinum crown on stage, the softness in her heart turned to steel. What are you waiting for? This is the best time to test the clan leader. Even if she's a demon king, she should have just advanced. The third elder looked at the queen consort, sighed softly, and shook his head. What had persuaded him was not just this platinum peacock crown. Just a few days ago, the peacock great demon king approached him. He didn't say anything. He simply took out a precious memory orb to show him a scene recorded within. It was the scene of an absolutely terrifying tribulation. It was only a part of the process, but it was enough. After all, everyone in Kali City had witnessed the terrifying tribulation clouds from the direction of the endless blue sea. The girl standing on the stage, despite having human blood, also bore the peacock golden crown. Her talent was not only comparable to the former peacock demon emperor but even surpassed it. Her bloodline was one thing, but the tribulation she'd been through was simply unprecedented in history. Who could be more qualified to inherit the clan leader position than such an existence? This would not only be an emperor but possibly someone who would surpass all known emperors, leading the Peacock Demon clan to the pinnacle of the demon continent. Regardless of their personal interests, they couldn't and wouldn't dare not support her. There were 2 reasons for the Peacock Great Demon King not showing that recording to all the elders. First, having half the elders support him was more than enough to make sure his decision would be upheld. Second, he didn't want Mei Gongzi to inherit the clan leader position solely through his backing. He wanted to provide her a stage to showcase herself. And at this moment, what could be a better opportunity than the 100 Birds Greet the Sun ceremony? With a flash of silver light, a figure ascended the platform. It was a young man. Seeing him on stage, Wang Han's expression stiffened slightly, and he almost spoke to stop him. "Long time no see," the young man said to Mei Gongzi, nodding slightly in greeting. The young man appeared to be in his 20s. He was tall and handsome, with neatly groomed peacock blue short hair. Almost all the Peacock Demon clan members present recognized him. He was Wang Han's son and the queen consort's chosen heir. In terms of talent and ability, he was the leading figure of the younger generation, and quite qualified to inherit the clan leader position. Yes, if it weren't for Mei Gongzi's victory in the Ancestral Court Elite competition, he would have been the number 1 of the younger generation in the Peacock Demon clan. The reason he didn't participate in the competition was that he had already successfully passed his tribulation and reached godhood, which made him the youngest demon king in the clan. "Who are you?" Mei Gongzi asked indifferently. The young man's expression stiffened. "Does she actually not know who I am? Or is she just insulting me?" His blood surged and golden light swirled around him. A solid-looking golden crown appeared above his head. The young man said in a deep voice, "I am Wang Ling." As it turned out, he also had a peacock golden crown, but his was golden. "My father wanted me to wait until you had faced several challenges before coming up, but I felt that wouldn't be fair to you or to me, and it would affect my cultivation mindset. So, I came up first. I hope to be your first challenger and your last. Only then will I feel worthy of standing where you are now." Such was Wang Ling's pride. As the recognized number 1 of the younger generation in the Peacock Demon clan, even the children of the royal family treated him with great respect. He was exceptionally talented, having manifested the Peacock Golden Crown at the age of 12, and had never been complacent, always working hard. When Wang Ling was 16, Wang Han told him that he was the most outstanding of the younger generation in the Peacock Demon clan, and that he had the opportunity to become the next clan leader. The Peacock Demon clan was facing pressure from the ancestral court, and only the emergence of an emperor could solve all their problems. Wang Ling had taken this as his mission and cultivated diligently. Finally, a year and a half ago, he broke through to become a demon king and fully condensed the Peacock Golden Crown. Having the crown gave him the right of succession, so he had always been one of the possible heirs. Of course, because he was not a member of the royal family, his ranking was technically below Mei Gongzi. But in Wang Ling's heart, he had never considered Mei Gongzi a competitor. One reason was her mixed blood, and another was his confidence in his own strength. However, no one had expected that in just a year or 2, the Peacock Great Demon King would first take Mei Gongzi into seclusion for cultivation, and then have her pass the ancestral trials to wield the celestial plume. This made the queen consort, Wang Han, and others realize that the Peacock Great Demon King truly intended to pass the clan leader position to Mei Gongzi, his mixed blood descendant. It was only then that Wang Ling started to notice this half-blood cousin of his. Although Wang Yan had told him long before that Mei Gongzi's strength was not lacking, Wang Ling had not paid attention at the time. He had never believed there was anyone in his generation who could even match him, much less defeat him. But now it was different. Today, she stood in the position of the clan leader's successor, and Wang Han had informed Wang Ling that 100 Birds Greet the Sun was his final opportunity. Initially, Wang Ling did not expect to be allowed to challenge her, because he was a demon king while Mei Gongzi was not. Yet the dozens of prospective challengers lost their eligibility when Mei Gongzi advanced to demon king, and conversely, he was now eligible. There were still a few demon kings that had the right to challenge her, and Wang Han had just sent a message to his son to wait until the end, but Wang Ling could wait no longer. It was his innate pride and self-respect that made him step out. If he couldn't defeat Mei Gongzi in a fair fight, how could he have the face to compete for the clan leader position? If he had such an opportunistic mindset, he would have never reached the heights he was at. Please enlighten me. Mei Gongzi wasn't intent on insulting him, but neither did she have much to say to him. In her eyes, everyone was an opponent, and defeating the opponent was all that mattered. She didn't know how many challenges were ahead, so there was no point wasting time. The high platform was not very large, far smaller than the competition platform of the Ancestral Court Elite competition, but that was not relevant. Few experts of their level would fight on the ground. With a flash of silver light, the two figures rose into the air. "Do not use the celestial plume," the queen consort's voice called out. The celestial plume was the clan's most important foundational weapon, and having it gave too great an advantage for those who controlled space. In reality, the celestial plume had long since recognized Mei Gongzi as its master, and the 100 Birds Greet the Sun ceremony did not prohibit the use of divine artifacts. When she shouted this, the queen consort thought the peacock Great Demon King would rebuke her, but to her surprise, he said nothing and simply continued holding her hand. At this moment, the queen consort faintly felt that the peacock Great Demon King's hand was strangely cold. She instinctively looked at her husband, only to see him sigh and shake his head. Why bother? It's useless. Both figures rose into the air, each with a peacock crown above their head. One golden and one platinum, both dazzling. Wang Ling made a gesture of invitation to Mei Gongzi. Mei Gongzi pointed to the sky with her right hand, her black hair floating despite the lack of wind. In the next instant, the sky darkened, and the entire castle of the Peacock Demon clan was shrouded in darkness, with only faint starlight swirling around. Wang Ling was slightly stunned. Star Shift? She's already mastered Star Shift? She just finished the Ancestral Court Elite competition, which meant she should have just passed her tribulation, and she's already mastered our strongest divine technique? He hadn't paid much attention to Mei Gongzi's title as the champion of the Ancestral Court Elite competition. In his view, if his cousin could achieve it, then he certainly could have done it as well, had he not reached the god level before the competition. But at this moment his heart grew heavy. He could use Star Shift as well, and he knew better than all his peers that this technique was not something that could be used casually. Silver light surged, and a peacock feather appeared in Wang Ling's hand. The golden crown on his head also burst into dazzling light, making the starlight in the dark sky even brighter. Two opponents who could both use Star Shift would first compete for the starlight, essentially a battle for control over the space element surrounding them. Mei Gongzi still pointed to the sky with her right hand. In the next moment, Wang Ling suddenly felt a bit dazed. The platinum crown on Mei Gongzi's head suddenly shone brightly, and a vast divine consciousness rippled out. Wang Ling felt as if something had been stripped from him, leaving his body empty. In the next moment he simply fell, and he had to partially transform into his demon form, opening his peacock wings to stabilize himself. Strands of silver light gathered in the air, surrounding Mei Gongzi and silently merging into her. The light gradually formed vortices that swirled around her, while Wang Ling's own light had long since dimmed. Mei Gongzi looked at Wang Ling, who was flying below her, and slowly lowered her right hand, pointing at him. He instinctively raised the peacock feather in his hand, trying to activate his bloodline power to use his best ability. But at that moment, he realized that his bloodline power was frozen and couldn't be mobilized at all. Even more terrifying, despite the abundance of space elemental energy around, not a single bit of it obeyed his command. In the next moment, his entire body was frozen in midair and surrounded by silver light. He was unable to move a muscle. With a flash of silver light, he reappeared on the ground, right in front of the elders, still unable to move due to the spatial restraints on him. In midair, Mei Gongzi frowned slightly, feeling somewhat surprised herself. She'd expected a serious challenge, but this was honestly far easier than the matches she'd had during the Ancestral Court Elite competition. Just as the battle was about to begin, she called upon the space element, merging with it. Then she sensed that the opponent was also trying to manipulate the same energy, even attempting to lock her Star Shift. She instinctively drew all the space energy to herself, and in process stripped her opponent of it. This was what usually happened when fighting a far superior bloodline of the same attribute. It was pure attribute suppression. But how much better could her bloodline be? No, his bloodline was close to perfection, so even if hers was absolutely perfect, the suppression shouldn't have been anywhere near this strong. In other words, her control over space was orders of magnitude better than his. As a fellow space element manipulator, he had lost all control over space. How could he fight like that? Even a basic spatial restraint rendered Wang Ling unable to move and sent him tumbling to the ground. The entire audience fell silent instantly. The Peacock Demon clan members all knew who Wang Ling was. They were well aware of how talented and strong he was, and that he was the undisputed number one of the younger generation. In fact, even outsiders who didn't know Wang Ling could tell at a glance that he was an unusually powerful demon king. But the battle was over in just one move. Victory? What victory? This was just trampling on the weak. Both the queen consort and Wang Han looked pale at this moment. They had always thought that the biggest obstacle today would be the Peacock Great Demon King. They had been trying to find ways to restrain him using the internal laws of the clan and whatnot. But they had never expected that Mei Gongxi's strength would have reached such a level. First, her powerful divine consciousness completely surpassed their understanding of what a demon king was like. Second, and more importantly, when she used her abilities, even they, great demon kings and strong ones for that matter, could feel that space was drawn to her. It wasn't that she controlled it by force. All of them could do that. Instead, she seemed to have merged with the space element, becoming one with it. She was not a manipulator of space but a part of it. It was more like she didn't have an affinity for the space element, but the space element had an affinity for her. This was something none of the Peacock Demon clan members present had ever felt. This seemingly simple battle was in fact incredibly shocking. Wang Ling was not the strongest among all the demon kings in the Peacock Demon clan. There were older ones who were stronger. However, he was definitely not the weakest. Yet in front of Mei Gongxi, Wang Ling couldn't even use his abilities. It wasn't that she forcefully took him down, but that space energy left him of its own accord. Who in the Peacock Demon clan could compete with her? Even a great demon king couldn't surpass her control over space. Moreover, she hadn't even used the celestial plume. If Tang San were here, he would instantly notice that Mei Gongxi's control over the space element had reached the absolute peak of this plane. She was now the one being most attuned to the space element in the entire plane. Even the planar ruler itself could not do any better. The 6 Directions 8 Desolations Golden Fiend Tribulation was indeed incredibly powerful and terrifying. Something Mei Gongxi couldn't have passed with her original cultivation. But now that she had successfully passed it, the plane itself acknowledged her, and this meant the space element was under her absolute control. This was no longer just about the Peacock Demon clan's bloodline. After all, there were other clans with a space attribute bloodline. But after successfully passing the tribulation with her human bloodline at the fore, she awakened a hint of divinity not from this plane but brought by the Azura sword. In other words, she possessed some divine intent from her past life in addition to the one gained in this life. As a result, no one with space-related abilities in this entire world was closer to the space element than she was. Wang Ling's strength was, of course, not something to scoff at. If he had abilities of another attribute, then even though Mei Gongxi would have inevitably won, it would have still taken her a while. But since they both had space-related abilities, and moreover both were from the Peacock Demon clan, the absolute attribute suppression made it impossible for him to exert even the strength needed to blink, let alone the strength to fight. Such was the might of a true master of space. Mei Gongxi silently felt the space energy whirling around her, as if rejoicing. She had gained new insights into this power after her breakthrough. She was yet to fully comprehend and internalize the benefits brought by the tribulation. But with these new realizations, the process seemed to speed up. As she slowly descended back to the high platform, returning to the position where the Peacock Great Demon King had stood before, the Peacock Demon clan was silent. Although all the Peacock Demon clan members couldn't believe the incredible scene, the facts were right in front of them. The Peacock Great Demon King turned to the Queen Consort and the elders, saying indifferently, "Do you want to continue? Should we let a Great Demon King try?" In the face of absolute control of space, how much power could a Great Demon King exert? As the saying goes, those playing the game may not see things clearly, but spectators do. The day Mei Gongxi successfully passed her tribulation, the Peacock Great Demon King, while bringing her and Tang San back, could clearly feel that the space energy in the air was constantly nourishing Mei Gongxi's body, as if protecting its master. He was by far the most adept space user around, and yet the space energy was actually avoiding him because of Mei Gongxi's presence. There were people with pure elemental physiques, but she had likely become something of an even higher level, an elemental avatar, the avatar of space. There could be multiple people with a pure elemental physique, but there could only be one elemental avatar at one time for any given element. Any being with the same attribute would find it impossible to control that element in the presence of an elemental avatar. Although Mei Gongxi was only a demon king, she had control of space at the level of a demon emperor, maybe even greater. What chance did her clansmen have against her? Even the Peacock Great Demon King himself didn't believe he could defeat Mei Gongxi now. After all, how could one fight if they couldn't smoothly manipulate their fundamental attribute? Therefore, he had never worried about the clan's internal strife, not for a single moment. Postponing the ceremony by 5 days was just to let his daughter rest and recover. What did the clan's doubts matter? In the presence of an avatar of space, any plans they had were in vain. Not even an emperor was guaranteed to become the avatar of their element. For instance, the Eternal Inferno Undying Demon Emperor, in spite of being arguably the most powerful fire element user in the entire plane, was not the avatar of fire. With that, it was clear how high Mei Gongxi's status was now. and how fragile the Peacock Demon clan was in front of her. But conversely, if the Peacock Demon clan united under her leadership, their overall improvement would be orders of magnitude faster. With this knowledge, the Peacock Great Demon King wasn't concerned about today's internal strife at all. At this moment, he still held the Queen Consort's hand, yet he was not restraining her but supporting her, preventing her from being overwhelmed by the events unfolding in front of her. Meanwhile, Mei Gongzi stood on the high platform, overlooking the Peacock Demon clan members. Next, Wang Ling was defeated in one move. Who the hell do you think is next? The Queen Consort's face was pale and almost on the verge of collapsing, although she didn't know about Mei Gongzi being the avatar of space, since not even Mei Gongzi herself was aware. As the descendant of an emperor, she knew a lot more than the average person. If her husband said that not even a great demon king could defeat Mei Gongzi, then that was the truth. How could they continue? At this point, 100 birds greet the sun had become a joke. At this moment, a voice with a hint of coldness reverberated in the air. Since outsiders are allowed, why don't I give it a try? Immediately, a figure shot out from among the spectators. As he appeared, the temperature in the air dropped significantly. A pair of dazzling blue wings spread open, and with just one flap, he was already on the high platform. He was a young-looking man, and as he ascended the platform, his gaze at Mei Gongzi carried a strange brilliance. The third elder of the Peacock Demon clan saw him and couldn't help but narrow his eyes, instinctively saying, "Ice Phoenix clan." Those ice blue wings were unique to their clan. The young man chuckled. How can the phoenix race, the kings of birds, be absent from 100 birds greet the sun? I am Hu Mengyu of the Ice Phoenix clan, here to challenge the heir of the Peacock Demon clan. Mei Gongzi's gaze instantly turned cold, but at that moment, she heard the voice of the Peacock Great Demon King in her ear. Do not kill. Mei Gongzi was slightly taken aback. Indeed, at that instant, she had already felt a surge of killing intent. Hu Mengyu looked down at the Peacock Great Demon King with a smile on his face and said, "Your Majesty, may I challenge her?" The Peacock Great Demon King replied indifferently, "You may."